Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 221, One of a Kind. Indigo Plateau, Pokemon League Headquarters Executive Meeting Room. Chairman Goodshow sat at the head of the long table. To his left were the Kanto Elite Four, led by Lance, and to his right sat the League's council members. Another one. Another one. Just what does Team Rocket take our Kanto League for? A middle-aged councilman, August, slammed the table in fury, his sharp gaze sweeping across the room, scanning the faces of his fellow council members. First Lieutenant Surge, then Koga, who's next? Ha? Will it be Sabrina of Saffron City? His rage was genuine. These were official gym leaders. Cerulean Gym was struggling with successors, Pewter Gym was relatively weak, Cinnabar Gym's Blaine was a stubborn old man, and Erica of Celadon Gym was average at best. The League's reputation had long been upheld by only four solid gyms: Viridian, Fuchsia, Saffron, and Vermilion. And now, two of those four gym leaders had been exposed as Team Rocket executives. Councilman August, please control yourself. We are all furious, but losing composure won't solve the problem. An older councilman, Rock, frowned in disapproval. And what was with that look August had just given him? Was he implying something? Ha! Councilman Rock, if I recall correctly, you were the one who supported Koga becoming the Fuchsia Gym leader, weren't you? August sneered. August! What are you insinuating? Rock's expression instantly darkened. Lorelei, arms crossed, cast a cold glance at Rock before curling her lips into a mocking smirk. Mr. Chairman, now that Koga has admitted to being a Team Rocket executive, I believe further interrogation is necessary. Even if he refuses to reveal the identity of Team Rocket's leader, we must continue investigating. I highly suspect that there are still Team Rocket spies among the gym leaders, and even within our league. August's tone grew heavier as he turned to Goodshow. But everyone in the room knew exactly what he meant. Rock was so furious that his breathing grew ragged. Permission granted for continued interrogation and investigation. Goodshow nodded. The meeting dragged on for hours, filled with discussions on how to combat Team Rocket and how to handle the vacant positions at Vermilion and Fuchsia gyms. Several council members proposed their own ideal candidates. After all, official gyms were prestigious and influential, far superior to independent ones. The benefits and power associated with them were obvious. But Goodshow wasn't going to decide lightly. These gyms were too important. He needed to ensure the right candidates took over. After the meeting, Elite Four office. Lance. August approached Lance from behind. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, Lance silently overlooked Indigo Plateau below, not bothering to turn around. This is the information I've gathered. August handed over a file. Lance finally turned, taking the file and flipping through it. His sharp eyes narrowed slightly. August gave a slight bow to the Elite Four before leaving. A bold kid. I like that. Agatha, leaning on her cane while absent-mindedly stroking her arbok, chuckled in her raspy voice. He came to us instead of the chairman. That guy. Lorelei moved to stand beside Lance, taking the file and skimming through it. Her eyes gleamed with cold fury. The file was filled with records of illegal dealings among League Council members. Some even had direct ties to Team Rocket. Goodshow is old. And when people grow old, they grow soft. He doesn't have the same resolve he once did. August realized this. Agatha smiled faintly. Even if you threw this file in Goodshow's face, he wouldn't immediately act. The League needs these people to function properly. And he has to maintain the League's public image. Agatha sighed, flipping open an ancient book she had been reading. The League has started to rot. Lorelei scoffed after a brief silence, then turned to Lance. Lance? Lance gazed out the window in silence. His once bright eyes were now dimming, shrouded in growing darkness like a candle flickering in the wind, barely holding on to its last remnants of light. The League. Team Rocket. Rhoda. Dylan had returned. After leaving him in Tensei, he had dropped Ash and the others off in Vermilion City before heading back to Rhoda with Leaf and Lily. Leaf planned to stay at the Rhoda gym for a while. After wandering around for so long, she decided she deserved a break. Rhoda gym's backyard. Come out. Dylan tossed 3 pokeballs into the air. 3 white flashes of light landed before him, revealing 3 Pokemon. These were Pokemon he had recently acquired, 2 from Professor Oak and 1 from Goodshow himself. The first was a Pokemon composed of geometric shapes, its body covered in blue and red polygons. Porygon. The second was a tiny pink Pokemon with stubby arms and legs, resembling a baby wearing pants. Happy Knee. And finally, the third, a white furred canine with a long, paintbrush-like tail. Smeargle. Dylan grinned. Smeargle wasn't strong stat-wise, but its potential was insane thanks to its Sketch move. In the games, Sketch permanently copied the target's last used move. Even legendary Pokemon's signature moves weren't off limits, though some had been patched out due to balancing issues. But how would this work in real life? I'm Dylan. From today on, I'll be your trainer. We're partners now. Dylan spoke warmly to his new Pokemon, radiating a calming aura through his Viridian power. In no time, he had bonded with them. Then, he turned to Smeargle. Let's test something. Dylan walked onto the open field. Reshiram, come out. A brilliant white dragon landed gracefully, blinking groggily. Reshiram, use blue flare into the sky. Smeargle, use Sketch to copy it. Reshiram, still a bit drowsy, obeyed. A roaring fireball swirled into the sky, its flames twisting like living serpents. Meanwhile, Smeargle's tail blowed as it attempted to copy the move. But suddenly, crack! The energy pencil manifested by Sketch shattered. Smeargle flinched, stumbling backward. Are you okay? Dylan crouched beside it. Smeargle shook its head but lowered its tail in disappointment. It failed. Looks like Sketch can't copy Tier 1 legendary signature moves. Dylan wasn't too surprised. The games had their limits, but reality followed its own logic. But what about ordinary legendaries? Marshadao. Dylan called out. Ma! Although I don't restrict what you eat, Marshadao. Dylan's eyelid twitched as he looked at the bag of potato chips in Marshado's hand. You're not actually planning to turn into Clefairy, are you? Marshadao suddenly fell silent. And that deafening silence made Dylan fall silent as well. You can eat, but you'll have to train for 4 hours every day. Ma! Marshado's pupils widened in shock. 4 hours is already on the low end. Zapdos is training 7 hours a day now, and that's of its own volition. If you gain too much weight next month, I'll add another hour. I'm doing this for your own good, Marshadao. Clefairy can barely even walk properly now. Dylan tried to reason with it. If Marshadao ended up like Clefairy, he wasn't sure he could handle it. Marshadao. Oh, right, almost forgot, Marshadao, use Spectral Thief. Dylan suddenly remembered something. Spectral Thief was Marshado's signature move. Marshadao carefully placed the bag of chips back into its shadow, then emerged from the darkness, landing in front of Dylan. Smeargle, use Sketch. Dylan pondered. Signature moves of mythical Pokemon couldn't be copied, so what about those of standard legendary Pokemon? Marshado's body slowly sank into the shadows. The next moment, a massive pillar of ghostly energy shot skyward, its eerie darkness nearly swallowing the light in Dylan's eyes. At the same time, countless enormous, hollow, orange pupils surfaced on the pillar of energy, densely packed and unsettling to behold. A true ghost-type Spectral Thief. Smeargle's Sketch had already activated as well, and its floating pencil circled the energy pillar, tracing its essence. Before long, the energy of Spectral Thief dissipated. Marshadao re-emerged from the shadows, tilting its head as it looked at Dylan and Smeargle. The energy-infused pencil returned to Smeargle's tail, and Smeargle turned to Dylan with excitement. Success! Now this is getting interesting. Dylan raised an eyebrow as he looked at his Smeargle. So, a standard legendary signature move could still be sketched. But Smeargle's attack power was honestly pitiful. He'd have to properly train and develop it. Yes, he would craft a one-of-a-kind Smeargle. Now, he wondered if Darkray's Dark Void could be sketched. In the games, it had been banned from sketch due to how overpowered it was, but in reality, who knew? If it worked, that would be incredible. Then he could find other legendary Pokemon and have Smeargle copy their moves too. Left hand, Dark Void. Right hand, Doom Desire. Throw in a Burning Jealousy in between. Finish off with Spectral Thief. The world's strongest Smeargle would be born. You think copying moves with sketch is broken? Go ahead and try it yourself if you can. Chapter 222, Dylan, I'm challenging you again. A normal-type team still feels incomplete. Dylan sat in the backyard of Rhoda Gym, looking at the 3 Pokemon before him. In reality, he had several other normal-type Pokemon as well. For example, he had Ursaluna, his partner Eevee, and his ace, Terrapagos, which also happened to be normal-type. Technically, he already had a full team. But team building wasn't that simple. Terrapagos was way too overpowered for a normal-type team meant to face regular challengers. Meanwhile, Smeargle, Porygon, and Happiny were all new and still needed training. Sure, he could use growth simulations to boost their progress, but 3 Pokemon alone weren't enough to balance the team. And there was no way he'd toss Terrapagos into the normal-type lineup, it just didn't fit. If it were Silvally, that would be a different story. But Terrapagos? Absolutely not. That Pokemon was meant to stay in his Golden Legend team, waiting for a worthy challenger. Unless, of course, the challenger was some old monster tier trainer. Who else should I add? Maybe I should get a Slaking? Dylan pondered the composition of his normal-type team. Porygon could pair well with Ursaluna as a special attack core, but he still needed a strong physical attack core. And Slaking was perfect for that role. Except for its Truant ability. One of the most frustrating abilities in existence. But honestly, it made sense Slaking would be way too broken otherwise. Slaking with guts. Would that even be legal? He chuckled at the thought. If only I had a Ursaring Hisui form. Dylan sighed. The original Ursaring Hisui, Ursaluna Bloodmoon, was an absolute physical powerhouse, a near-perfect Pokemon, aside from its slow speed. Unfortunately, Hisui Ursaring's evolution required a special environment that didn't exist in the modern era. There was no way a normal Ursaring could evolve into Ursaluna now. I'll think about it later. For now, he was focused on teaching Smeargle more moves with Sketch. In the games, Smeargle could only learn 4 moves. But in real life? There were no such limits. That meant Fake Out must have. Parting Shot must have. Destiny Bond must have. Protect-based moves like Baneful Bunker and Flame Cloak also must have. TCH. So many essential moves. Dylan scratched his chin, staring at Smeargle, who was completely confused by its trainer's deep thinking. But the real breakthrough came next. Dark Void works. This is amazing. He had Darkrai demonstrate Dark Void, and Smeargle successfully copied it with Sketch. Nice. Meanwhile, in Kanto. With 5 of Team Rocket's executives captured, the organization suffered a devastating blow. Officer Jenny, wasting no time, immediately transported the captured executives in separate unmarked vehicles to avoid detection. They were successfully transferred to the Indigo Plateau prison. Athena now had 5 new cellmates. How wonderful! Dylan was even considering paying them a visit sometime soon. After all, Archer and Proton were practically his best friends. Half a month later, Rota town entrance. A boy wearing a cap stood at the town's entrance, staring at the Rota Gym bulletin board. His crimson eyes gleamed with determination. Dylan. I'm challenging you again. Rota Gym, backyard. I should prepare a gift for Celine. Dylan sat on the grass, thinking about a gift for his first apprentice, Celine. She was about to reach adulthood, and due to her rising reputation at Rota Gym, her mother had apparently abandoned their plans to move to Alola. In the games, they were supposed to move before Celine set off on her journey. But now? There were no signs of moving. Which made sense. Her daughter was doing so well at Rota Gym, why would she leave? And as her mentor, Dylan felt obligated to give her a gift to celebrate her official journey as a trainer. He already had an idea of what to give. Looks like we're not expecting many challengers this afternoon. Leaf stretched lazily, her curvy figure accentuated by the motion. Yup. She was back at Rota Gym, once again mooching off free food. The Indigo Conference is starting soon. More trainers have collected 8 badges, so they're all in special training mode. Lily was replying to messages on her phone. She chuckled at the news. Special training? Leaf yawned. Honestly, all those weaklings could train for a month straight and still wouldn't improve as much as if they just challenged Dylan's gym a few times. She had completely embraced her identity as part of Rota Gym. Leaf, aren't you going to enter the Indigo Conference? Nah. Leaf shook her head. The tournament would attract too much attention, and she didn't want to risk exposing herself to the masked organization. Besides, there's no point entering this year. Leaf's mind drifted to a certain red-eyed boy. The Indigo Conference champion was already decided. He wasn't as ridiculous as Dylan, but he was still a monster. By now, he was definitely at champion level. No, he was champion level. After all, I personally picked him as one of my 2 big powerhouses back then. Maybe next year. Celine, you should fight him one day. Leaf smirked, turning to Celine. Monsters should battle monsters, don't you think? To her, this was common sense. Celine puffed out her chest proudly. Yeah, I'm awesome. Leaf, you know Blue? Asha, Celine's younger sister, tilted her head curiously. She assumed Leaf was talking about Blue Oak. After all, if Blue participated in the Indigo Conference, the other competitors might as well go home. Blue? No, I meant. Leaf started, but before she could finish. Creak. The doors of Rota Gym swung open. A cap-wearing boy stepped inside. Hello? Are you here to challenge Rota Gym? Asha immediately approached, greeting the newcomer with a bright smile. Yes. The boy lowered his cap slightly, his red eyes hidden beneath its shadow. Red? Leaf blinked. Red looked up at her in confusion. You two know each other? Asha was surprised. Ha, I work here now. Red, are you here to challenge Dylan? Leaf smiled playfully. Red nodded silently. There were too many people staring at him. His social anxiety was kicking in. I get to see you battle Dylan again. Nice, nice. Come here, Red. Leaf enthusiastically led Red toward Rota Gym's famous roulette wheel. She was super excited to witness Red vs. Dylan round 2. This time, who would win? A legendary team, huh? Red lowered his cap slightly. To be honest, he was a little tempted to try. And Leaf wasn't wrong. If he wanted the toughest challenge, then the legendary team was the way to go. A team composed entirely of legendary Pokémon. Go on, Red, let's see what team you land on. Leaf was already used to Red's silence. After all, he was naturally the quiet type. If someone didn't know him, they might even mistake him for a complete shut-in. Red pressed the button, and the pointer on the roulette wheel spun rapidly before gradually slowing down. It finally stopped on a red section with a flame emblem. A fire-type team, huh? Well, that does suit you. Leaf tapped her chin, feeling a bit disappointed. Why couldn't it have landed on gold? She really wanted to see what kind of expression this nearly emotionless guy would make if he had to face Dylan's legendary team. Fire, huh? Red stared at the flame-marked section, lost in thought. And just then, Red! A surprised yet familiar voice called out from the side. Dylan! Red! Red immediately turned toward the voice. A black-clad figure was walking toward him, and the moment Red's scarlet eyes met Dylan's, his expression shifted. His eyes brightened, and despite himself, the corners of his lips curled into a small, almost imperceptible smile. It's been a while. Dylan stepped forward, smiling at Red. It's been about 3 months now, hasn't it? Dylan recalled their last encounter. It had been back in Celadon City. Red nodded. He remembered it clearly too. I thought you weren't going to challenge me anymore, Dylan teased. After all, the Indigo Conference is only about a month away. Training took a lot of time. Red actually spoke a full sentence, which was rare for him. He wanted Dylan to understand this battle mattered to him. Dylan was both his rival and friend, someone he deeply respected. Oh? Looks like you came prepared this time. Dylan raised an eyebrow. Red didn't respond with words. Instead, he simply locked eyes with Dylan, his red pupils burning with intense battle spirit. He could barely contain himself. Looks like whatever we have to say can wait until after the battle, Dylan chuckled. He was also very curious to see how much stronger Red had become. And the moment a challenger stepped into the battlefield, 3 familiar figures entered the spectator stands right on time. It wasn't just them, several curious onlookers had also entered the gym. Rota Gym was becoming more and more popular. Gym Battle Arena. Dylan and Red took their places on opposite sides of the battlefield. Leaf walked into the center, holding up a small flag. This will be a gym battle for the Rota badge. The challenger is Red, from Pallet Town. The battle format will be a full 6v6 battle. The gym leader, Dylan, will send out his Pokemon first and cannot switch Pokemon. If all 6 of Dylan's Pokemon are defeated, the challenger wins. Battle, start. Leaf swung the flag down, officially starting the match. Whoa! A full 6v6 battle? Asha was surprised. In all the time she had been at Rota Gym, this was the first time she had seen Dylan participate in a full team battle. Celine and Lily were also intrigued. Everyone knew the gym leaders set their own battle rules. So if Dylan had chosen a full 6v6 battle, then it meant Red was special. Normally, Rota Gym battles were either 2v2 or 3v3. Even when Blue challenged Dylan, it had been a 5v5 battle. This was the first full team battle ever. W. Well, the opponent is Red, after all. Eileen, you're here too? Asha and the others turned toward the woman who had just arrived. I came to check things out and happened to arrive just in time for Red's challenge. Eileen smiled gracefully, her elegant demeanor drawing attention as her gaze landed on Red. She remembered him quite well. After several months, he had finally come to challenge Rota Gym. Back in the arena. Red turned his gaze toward Leaf. The battle rules had already been announced, so why was she still standing there? Stare. Red, do your best. Knock Dylan out. Leaf winked at Red, giving him a cheerful thumbs up before finally stepping out of the battlefield. Scoreboard lights up. On the large electronic scoreboard, Dylan's and Red's faces appeared on opposite sides. Red, I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Dylan gracefully unbuttoned the collar of his black shirt, then slowly slid on his black gloves. All the while, his gaze never left Red. Dylan, this time, I'm going to defeat you. Red lowered his cap, his scarlet eyes gleaming fiercely from beneath the shadow. Defeating Dylan. Winning the Rota badge. These were the thoughts that had occupied Red's mind for months. And on top of that damn Blue. Red's eyelid twitched slightly. Blue had challenged Dylan first and won the Rota badge before him. Ever since then, he wouldn't shut up about it. Every time Red opened his messages, Blue was flexing. All the time. Ha! Red, guess what? I already beat Dylan. Good luck catching up to me. Yo, Red, how does it feel knowing I got the Rota badge first? Winking face. You're not scared, are you? Come on, step it up, slowpoke. LOL, imagine not having the Rota badge yet. Couldn't be me. Grinning squinting face. Red was so done with this. Just because Blue was a little faster than him. He acted like he was the king of the world. Enough. Red clenched his fist. Watch closely, Blue. I'll beat Dylan and get the Rota badge too. If Blue could do it, then so could he. I will win. Chapter 223, Flames Replacing the Sun. The bird keeper in the audience looked at Red in surprise. There was no doubt a full team battle meant Red was strong. This guy. Why does he look so familiar? The eldest sister in the group crossed her arms, lost in thought. She was certain she had seen him before. Dylan's fire-type team. We haven't really seen much of it. I wonder how strong it is. The psychic trainer was more interested in Dylan's fire team. Fire was a popular type, and many trainers specialized in it. Would Dylan's fire-type team be any different? In the arena. Words like that should only be said after you win. Dylan spun a pokeball between his fingers, smiling at Red. This time, I'll be using my fire team against you. Red experienced the true heat of flames. My first Pokemon will be this one. With a flick of his wrist, Dylan threw out his first Pokeball. Ninetales, battle ready. A flash of white light, and a golden-furred, elegant Ninetales landed gracefully in front of Dylan. A fire-type Ninetales. Ninetales, huh? Blastoise. Red's crimson eyes remained unreadable. Ninetales wasn't exactly rare, it was actually a very popular fire-type Pokemon. Both Vulpix and Ninetales were highly sought after due to their beautiful appearances. However, when it came to battle potential, Arcanine was generally considered superior to Ninetales. Red tossed his Pokeball, and with a burst of light, his strong and sturdy Blastoise landed with a heavy thud in front of him. Ah, it's that Blastoise again. But this time will be different. Dylan chuckled softly and snapped his fingers. Ninetales. Ninetales let out a long, melodic cry. A blazing orb of light rose into the air, and in an instant, the battlefield was bathed in intense sunlight. The sky became so bright that looking directly upward became difficult. Ninetales' ability, Drought. The weather changed to harsh sunlight. Red remained silent. He had expected this. Ninetales with Drought was rare, but not impossible. And Dylan wouldn't settle for an inferior ability like Flash Fire. Well, Red, since you're the challenger, you get the first move. Dylan gestured elegantly. Blastoise. Hydro Pump. Red gave no hesitation. Even under harsh sunlight, water still had a type advantage over fire. And at full health, Hydro Pump's power was immense. Blastoise let out a deep roar. Its cannons expanded, charging up. A massive surge of water blasted forth, flooding the battlefield as if a tidal wave had erupted. The sheer volume of water was overwhelming, practically drowning the entire arena. It's gotten much stronger. Dylan raised an eyebrow. This Blastoise was far stronger than when he had faced it back in Vermilion City. But it still wouldn't be enough. Baton Pass. Ninetales' eyes glowed mysteriously. Its body turned into white light. Just before the Hydro Pump could hit, Ninetales disappeared back into its Pokeball. The attack completely missed. Baton Pass. A normal-type move that switched Pokemon, transferring any stat boosts along with it. Though Ninetales hadn't used any buffs, it was still a clean escape. Red remained silent. Incineroar. Dylan threw out another Pokeball. With a burst of light, a muscular, tiger-like Pokemon landed in front of him. Incineroar bared its fangs, spreading its arms wide. Its eyes locked on the Blastoise, a wicked grin spreading across its face. Intimidate. A white aura flickered around Blastoise, lowering its attack stat. Incineroar, ha! Up in the stands, several spectators frowned. Incineroar had gained a reputation for being an absolute menace in battle. Recently, more and more trainers were traveling to Alola just to get one for themselves. It had become infamous. Hydro Pump again. Red wasted no time. Fake out. Dylan smirked. Incineroar blurred forward. Pa! It slapped Blastoise across the face. Blastoise flinched, its attack cancelled. Parting shot. Before Blastoise could react, Incineroar pointed at it, muttering some very colorful insults. Blastoise's expression darkened. It looked incredibly pissed off. Its attack and special attack dropped. Then, Incineroar vanished back into its Pokeball. Red was completely silent. Since when did Dylan fight like this? Volcarona, battle ready. Dylan's third Pokemon took the field. A large, moth-like Pokemon hovered in the air. Its blue eyes gleamed coldly as it stared down Blastoise. A heavy, oppressive heat filled the battlefield. Volcarona. Red's expression grew serious. This Volcarona was strong. Beep Volcarona, Bug/Fire type, the Sun Pokemon. Ability: Swarm moves, Fiery Dance, Fire Blast, Hurricane, Bug Buzz, Flamethrower, Heat Wave, Quiver Dance, Morning Sun, U-turn. Pokédex entry: when the land is shrouded in volcanic ash, Volcarona's flames serve as a substitute for the sun. This thing looks insanely strong. The eldest sister in the audience was shocked after reading its Pokédex entry. Volcarona's flames serve as a substitute for the sun? That was way too overpowered. And this was Dylan's Volcarona. Volcarona is Champion Alder's ace Pokemon. The psychic trainer muttered. How does Dylan's compare to Alder's? With harsh sunlight, fire moves will be even stronger. And good thing the challenger is using water types. But Volcarona has a 4x weakness to rock. The bird keeper nodded. Fire/Bug had a massive weakness to rock moves. And Blastoise knew Rock Slide. But Blastoise's attack was lowered twice already. If Red wants to take down Volcarona, he might need to switch. In the arena. Blastoise, Hydro Pump. Red didn't switch. He wanted to test Volcarona's strength first. Even with its stats lowered, Blastoise wasn't afraid of a fire type. It was also a good way to gather information. Blastoise's cannons glowed blue. Fire Blast. Dylan smirked. Volcarona remained still. A massive flaming kanji, big, formed before it. Blastoise's Hydro Pump and Volcarona's Fire Blast collided in midair. Classic water versus fire. Blue and red clashed violently. Boom! Blazing flames versus raging waters. Scorching flames and icy water clashed violently, red and blue light intertwining in a spectacular battle. Yet, to everyone's shock, Hydro Pump failed to overpower Fire Blast. In fact, Volcarona's Fire Blast was slowly pushing Hydro Pump back. It's useless, Red. Dylan's lips curled into a smug grin. Even Hydro Pump can't stop my Volcarona. Even against Red's Blastoise, it didn't matter. With harsh sunlight active, fire-type moves gained extra power, while water-type moves were weakened. Plus, Blastoise's special attack had already been lowered by Incineroar's parting shot. What could it possibly do against Volcarona? If not for Hydro Pump's naturally high power, Fire Blast would have already scorched Blastoise's shell. Blastoise. Red's crimson eyes sharpened. He calmly issued a command. Blastoise let out a deep roar. Its Hydro Pump surged, intensifying its force against Fire Blast. Boom! The two attacks finally lost balance and exploded. Fiery embers and steam erupted, sending powerful shockwaves through the battlefield. Volcarona. Dylan's voice was steady. Volcarona flapped its 6 blazing wings, effortlessly floating above the aftermath. Tiny embers danced around its body like fire spirits, moving with an almost hypnotic grace. Volcarona glided through the fiery wind, arriving right above Blastoise. Blastoise. Rapid spin. Red's expression darkened. Something wasn't right. Blastoise tucked its limbs and head into its shell, spinning at high speed. Fiery dance. Volcarona's wings flared. The floating embers ignited instantly, transforming into a rain of flames. Fiery dance. Once, fiery dance had been Volcarona's signature move. Now, Iron Moth could also learn it. So technically, it wasn't exclusive anymore. Still, on this battlefield, under this sun, Volcarona was the only one dancing in the fire. A sea of crimson flames cascaded downward. Volcarona twirled midair, weaving gracefully through the embers, as if performing a ritualistic dance. The sight was mesmerizing. Blastoise. Red's gaze sharpened. Blastoise's sturdy shell could withstand physical blows. But against pure elemental power? Not as well. Blastoise spun faster, enduring the searing flames while trying to escape the attack. The scorching heat licked at its shell, but Blastoise pushed through, fighting to break free. Blastoise. Water gun. Red issued a sharp command. Still spinning, Blastoise's cannons glowed blue. Then, a high-pressure water jet blasted outward, clearing a temporary path through the flames. Blastoise burst through the inferno, emerging from the attack's range. But Volcarona was already on the move. Fiery dance again. Dylan's voice was calm but firm. Volcarona soared higher. Then, another wave of fiery embers rained down. More fiery dance. Boom! Flaming projectiles collided against Blastoise's shell. The explosion sent Blastoise flying, knocking it out of its spin. Blastoise crashed onto the ground, its limbs splayed out, panting heavily. Red frowned. Meanwhile, Volcarona's body began to glow faintly. A soft aura of flames flickered around it. Its special attack had increased. Fiery Dance's secondary effect had activated. Now, floating high above the battlefield, backlit by the blazing sun, Volcarona looked almost like a miniature sun itself. From above, it gazed down at Blastoise, its pure blue eyes cold and indifferent. Even as smoke curled from Blastoise's scorched shell, Volcarona remained still. But its presence alone was suffocating. Even as a spectator, you could feel its overwhelming power. That was insane. The eldest sister in the audience finally snapped out of her daze. Her voice trembled slightly. What kind of monster is that? From start to finish, Volcarona had only used fire-type attacks. Yet, it had completely dominated Blastoise. Even though bug-type moves weren't resisted, Dylan had chosen to rely only on fire. This was a statement. A declaration. I will defeat you with fire alone. No. The psychic trainer shook his head. Volcarona is incredibly strong, but its dominance here is also due to the weather advantage and Blastoise's lowered stats. During the first Fire Blast vs Hydro Pump clash, it was already clear. Volcarona wasn't significantly stronger than Blastoise. Their levels were close. The sunlight won't last much longer. The psychic trainer glanced at the sky. The artificial sun created by Ninetales was beginning to fade. But until it did, Blastoise had no chance to recover. Chapter 224, Insane. Red, how's my Volcarona? Dylan spoke slowly, smiling as he looked at Red. Since he was battling Red, he had to get serious. Dylan enjoyed facing strong challengers, he loved battling, especially against opponents who could ignite his fighting spirit. Very strong. Red, in battle mode, was much more talkative than usual, and the burning intensity in his eyes showed his emotions at this moment. Come back, Blastoise. Red recalled his Blastoise. Although it could still fight, it had been weakened significantly by Incineroar. Continuing the battle would be meaningless. Lapras. Red threw out his second Pokémon. With a low cry, a Pokémon resembling a Plesiosaur landed before him. Its body was primarily blue, with a gray shell on its back covered in uneven protrusions. It was Lapras, a Water/Ice-type Pokémon. Deep Lapras, Water/Ice-type, the Transport Pokémon. Ability, Shell Armor. Moves, Sheer Cold, Perish Song, Hydro Pump, Rain Dance, Life Dew, Surf. Description: with a kind heart that understands human speech, it carries people across the sea on its back. This Lapras is really strong too. The younger girl clicked her tongue in amazement. At this point, it was clear Red's strength was definitely on par with Blue's. Yeah, seriously impressive. Another monster. Lily was equally astonished. Trainers from Pallet Town all seemed ridiculously powerful. Red had just started his journey this year, right? And he was already at the champion level? And then there was Blue, another monster. Ash might not have the same raw talent as these two, but could someone who had caught the attention of Ho-Oh really end up being weak? Lily thought that was impossible. Her brother also treated Ash differently, which was another sign. And then there was Leaf. She was originally from Pallet Town, too. Trainers from Pallet Town were just absurdly strong. No worries, Celine. You're not any worse than them, and Yellow will catch up to them too. Leaf smiled playfully. Of course. I'll do my best. This clearly showed the difference in personality between Celine and Yellow. On the battlefield. Red, Water/Ice types don't resist fire, you know. Dylan studied Lapras. This one was exceptionally well developed. Normally, a Lapras around 2.5 meters was considered standard. But Red's Lapras was at least 2.8 meters tall. Its training had been meticulous. Red remained silent. Water resisted fire, but ice was weak to fire, so Lapras didn't actually resist fire-type moves. However, its water-type attacks were still super effective against Volcarona. Besides, Lapras, Surf. Red gave the order without hesitation. A deep blue glow shimmered around Lapras as its clear cry rang out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of waves echoed as a towering wave surged up from the ground, lifting Lapras and crashing toward Volcarona. A water-type Surf. Fiery Dance. Dylan smiled calmly. Volcarona slid backward gracefully, its wings igniting with flickering flames. As it flapped powerfully, fiery waves shot forward, colliding with the Surf attack. Fire-type Fiery Dance. Water and fire clashed violently, sending steam billowing throughout the arena, making the temperature rise rapidly. The referee, seeing this, immediately opened the gym's ceiling panels to release the excess heat, otherwise, the temperature inside would become unbearable. Body Slam. Red's red eyes gleamed sharply. From atop the surging wave, Lapras leaped high into the air, diving straight for Volcarona. A normal-type Body Slam. Retreat, Solar Beam. Dylan glanced at the sky. The sunny day effect was about to fade, not good news for him, since it greatly benefited fire types. Volcarona quickly flapped its wings and retreated while its glowing wings absorbed sunlight. A grass-type Solar Beam. Boom! A blinding white beam of energy shot toward Lapras. Ancient Power. Red reacted instantly. Lapras let out a powerful cry as multiple glowing stones materialized and shot toward Volcarona. A rock-type Ancient Power. Dylan raised an eyebrow. So this was why Red had brought Lapras so close to Volcarona. The solar beam struck Lapras directly, causing an explosive shockwave. Lapras cried out in pain as it was blasted backward. Being a Water/Ice type, Lapras was weak to grass. This hit dealt serious damage. But at the same time, the ancient power boulders slammed into Volcarona, making it screech in pain as it was sent crashing to the ground. Volcarona was quadruple weak to rock-type moves. The damage from Ancient Power was immense. That was amazing. That Ancient Power hit hard. The birdkeeper's eyes lit up. As a challenger, he was, of course, rooting for Red. Truly impressive. He must have planned that in advance. That Ancient Power was timed so it wouldn't collide with Solar Beam. Otherwise, Solar Beam would have completely obliterated it. The older girl sighed in admiration. That was the brilliance of the move. If Lapras had fired Ancient Power head-on against Solar Beam, it would have been overpowered instantly. Now, though, even though both Pokémon were heavily injured, Ancient Power was quadruple effective against Volcarona. This was an acceptable trade for Lapras. After all, Volcarona was too overwhelming, knocking it out, even at the cost of Lapras, was absolutely worth it. As expected of you, Red. Dylan wasn't too surprised as he glanced at both downed Pokémon. While Ancient Power was quadruple effective, Volcarona had been in peak condition and had excellent special defense. Unfortunately, it just wasn't strong enough. Despite the heavy damage, Volcarona slowly lifted itself off the ground, wings trembling. Its once calm blue eyes were now cold and furious as it glared down at the struggling Lapras. Lapras had dealt a major blow with Ancient Power, but it hadn't been enough to take Volcarona down completely. Your Volcarona is the same. Red looked at Lapras. It had suffered severe injuries, the super-effective Solar Beam had hit hard, and Volcarona's special attack had already been boosted once. But thankfully, Lapras had been trained exceptionally well, it could still hold on. That's why I said, I'm really looking forward to your challenge, Red. You're exactly the kind of opponent I love. Dylan was thrilled by the unpredictability of such a powerful opponent. A yellow-green energy began to shimmer around Volcarona. This was Bug-type energy, the activation of its ability, Swarm. Swarm, when a Pokémon's HP is low, its Bug-type moves become more powerful. Essentially, it was the Bug-type equivalent of Blaze. Volcarona, Bug Buzz. A brilliant energy radiated from Volcarona's body as a piercing, discordant buzzing sound filled the air. Sonic waves pulsed outward in tangible waves. A Bug-type Bug Buzz. Sunny Day had faded, but now Swarm was in effect. Lapras, protect. Red's voice was firm. Despite the deafening noise, Lapras endured it, summoning a shimmering green barrier. The sonic waves crashed against the protect barrier but were completely blocked. You can't protect forever, though, can you? Dylan chuckled knowingly. Volcarona let out another Bug Buzz, its sonic attack rippling through the air. With its aerial advantage and Lapras' relatively slow speed, especially on a standard battlefield where mobility was further restricted, Lapras had little room to maneuver. As for trading blows head-on, there was no way Lapras could win a direct clash against a swarm-boosted Volcarona. Surf! Red quickly made his decision, giving Lapras the command. Once again, a massive wave surged from the ground, carrying Lapras as it rushed toward Volcarona. However, the Bug Buzz sound waves struck the water, vibrating through the wave and shattering it from the middle, causing the surf to collapse. The power of Bug Buzz was overwhelming. But before the wave could fully dissipate, Lapras had already leaped high into the air, its target, Volcarona. You think the same move will work twice, Red? That's underestimating me a little, don't you think? Dylan raised an eyebrow. Volcarona, Hurricane. Volcarona let out a deep cry. As it flapped its wings forcefully, a violent storm surged forward to engulf the descending Lapras. A flying-type hurricane. Dylan wasn't about to let Lapras trade hits this time. Hurricane's wide coverage attack was completely different from the previously used Solar Beam. Protect! Red reacted instantly. As Lapras plummeted toward Volcarona, a green protect barrier shimmered around its body, blocking the raging winds of Hurricane. The protect barrier began to crack. Bug Buzz. Brine. At the moment protect shattered, both Pokémon attacked simultaneously. Volcarona unleashed another Bug Buzz, while Lapras fired a jet of water. A water-type brine. When the opponent's health was low, Brian's power doubled. The sonic waves of Bug Buzz pulsed outward, covering the entire space in front of Volcarona. Red had intended to make Brian slip past Volcarona's attack like before, but Dylan had anticipated this. With Bug Buzz covering such a large area, Brian couldn't sneak through, it had to clash head-on with the attack. However, with Volcarona's special attack boosted and Swarm activated, its Bug Buzz was absurdly powerful. Even at double power, Brian couldn't break through, it was Bug Buzz that struck Lapras instead. Still, right before impact, Lapras forcibly twisted its body, turning its back shell toward Volcarona to absorb the brunt of the hit. As Bug Buzz blasted into Lapras, the Pokémon cried out in pain, its body spiraling downward. Boom! Lapras crashed heavily onto the battlefield. Finish it with Giga Drain, Dylan ordered decisively. Volcarona descended, its body glowing with deep green energy as particles of life force began drifting toward it from Lapras. Lapras! Hydro Pump! Suddenly, Red's voice rang out. Dylan was momentarily surprised. Before his eyes, Lapras abruptly lifted its head, water energy surging in its mouth. It had just been struck by Bug Buzz and slammed into the ground, how could it counterattack so quickly? But the reality was undeniable. Was it because Lapras had used its shell to tank the damage? Had Red planned all of this? Dylan narrowed his eyes. No, if Giga Drain didn't take effect quickly enough, Volcarona would be the one to go down first. Bug Buzz! Lapras unleashed a massive torrent of water, while Volcarona abandoned Giga Drain and immediately flapped its wings, sending out another devastating Bug Buzz. Boom! Two explosive sounds erupted almost simultaneously. Before Hydro Pump even fully connected, Bug Buzz had already struck Volcarona, but the immense water pressure sent Volcarona flying backward in a spray of water. At the same time, Bug Buzz detonated against Lapras, creating a massive shockwave. Holy crap! What a turn of events! I thought Lapras was done for. Wait, I don't get it. How did Lapras fire off Hydro Pump so fast after getting hit and crashing? Volcarona might not withstand that Hydro Pump. Whoa! This challenger is insane. He might actually be the first to take down Dylan's Pokémon. 666. This guy is incredible. The spectators, who had gathered to watch, erupted into excited discussions. On the battlefield, Volcarona struggled to lift itself, but the super-effective Hydro Pump had dealt a serious blow. Combined with the ancient power from earlier, quadruple effective against it, Volcarona ultimately couldn't get back up. It collapsed, completely unconscious. On the other side, as the dust settled, Lapras was revealed with spiral eyes, it hadn't been able to withstand Bug Buzz either. Volcarona and Lapras are both unable to battle. Leaf announced the result. Dylan recalled Volcarona, looking down at its Pokeball with a smile. Not bad at all, Red. You're even stronger than I expected. He looked up at Red, his expression genuinely impressed. Red tugged his cap down slightly. Even though he had taken down Volcarona, he didn't feel like he had gained any real advantage. In fact, this full-team battle was shaping up to be even tougher than he had anticipated. Dylan's strategy revolved around an all-fire-type team, and yet Lapras, a water-type Pokémon, had already been taken out early on. That was definitely not a good sign. Especially considering the battle rules had actually been slightly in Red's favor. But the battle is just getting started, Red. Your next opponent will be far harder to deal with than Volcarona. Dylan pulled out another Pokeball, a smirk forming on his lips. Red pressed the brim of his cap down further, the shadow obscuring his red eyes and the serious expression on his face. Harder to deal with than Volcarona? Did that mean Volcarona was actually the weakest of Dylan's core team? Red furrowed his brows but quickly relaxed them again. The stronger Dylan was, the more intense the battle. And the more excited Red became. Still, how had Blue managed to defeat Dylan and earn the Rota badge? Could it be that he had simply lucked out with a favorable type matchup, and Dylan had used weaker Pokémon? Yeah, that must be it. Red was sure of it. Chapter 225, Feel Its Power. Incineroar. Dylan flipped his hand and tossed out the pokeball. The fierce Incineroar reappeared in front of Dylan, letting out a low growl and a show of intimidation toward Red. Red. Seeing Incineroar, Red fell silent. Blastoise. Despite his silence, Red still opened his pokeball, and Blastoise landed in front of him once more. Then came the familiar combination Intimidate plus Fake Out plus Parting Shot, a 3-hit debuff sequence. Red frowned but found himself helpless against it. This was truly an utterly unreasonable weakening strategy. Next, Dylan switched to Ninetales, bringing the harsh sunlight back into play with its drought ability. Baton Pass. Dylan quickly recalled Ninetales. Shell Smash. Red hesitated for a moment before issuing his command to Blastoise. With all of Dylan's tactical maneuvers, he couldn't just sit there and watch. But attacking was pointless. Before any move could reach Ninetales, it would likely already be back in its Pokeball. Red also refrained from using Rain Dance to counter the harsh sunlight, because Ninetales and Incineroar could rotate seamlessly. If he used Rain Dance now, Dylan could simply switch back to Incineroar and use Parting Shot to cycle Ninetales, and again, it would be meaningless. Blastoise let out a low growl as a brilliant white light continuously flashed around its body. Shell Smash. A normal-type move that lowers the user's defense and special defense by one stage but drastically increases attack, special attack, and speed. It was a high-risk, high-reward setup move, but in this case? Due to Incineroar's debuffs, Blastoise's attack had only returned to its normal level, its special attack had only risen by one stage, and the only true gain was in speed. Iron Moth. Get ready for battle. Dylan tossed out his fourth Pokémon. With a flash of white light, a Pokémon resembling Volcarona hovered silently in front of him. It shared many physical traits with Volcarona, but its mechanical design was unmistakable. Even its wings looked like they were made of cold, lifeless metal, giving it an eerie presence. This was Iron Moth. Beep. Iron Moth, Fire/Poison type, Paradox Pokémon. Ability, Quark Drive. Moves, Bug Buzz, Overheat, Morning Sun, Fiery Dance, Sludge Wave, Discharge, Fire Blast, Electric Terrain. Description: this Pokémon bears a strong resemblance to unidentified flying objects, UFOs, rumored to observe humans, as reported in supernatural magazines. Dylan's Rotom Pokédex provided detailed information on Iron Moth, but the Pokédexes of Blue and the others failed to recognize it. What is that Pokémon? Red tried to recall any knowledge of this Pokémon but found nothing in his memory. From its appearance, could it be a different form of Volcarona? Iron Moth is a Paradox Pokémon with fire and poison typing, Dylan explained. He never liked keeping type advantages a secret. Red's crimson eyes flickered slightly. He was already familiar with Paradox Pokémon. After all, Dylan had gifted him a powerful Roaring Moon. And with a fire plus poison typing, that meant Iron Moth had a quadruple weakness to ground moves. However, since Iron Moth was airborne, hitting it with a ground-type move would be a challenge. Red remained cautious. Based on what Dylan had said earlier, this Iron Moth was likely just as strong as the Volcarona from before, if not even stronger. Blastoise, use Hydro Pump. Pulling down his cap slightly, Red gave the order he needed to gauge Iron Moth's strength first. Blastoise let out a roar as the twin cannons on its back began to glow blue. Hydro Pump. Although Blastoise wasn't at full health, having taken a hit from Volcarona's Fiery Dance earlier and being struck twice by Incineroar's Fake Out. Thanks to Shell Smash, it had negated the effects of Parting Shot and boosted its special attack by one stage. As a result, this Hydro Pump was just as strong as the one used against Volcarona earlier. A massive surge of water erupted, crashing toward Iron Moth like an unstoppable tidal wave. Fire Blast. Dylan smiled. Iron Moth slid backward with an eerie grace, its body glowing red as flames condensed in front of it. A massive, kanji-shaped blaze erupted forward, colliding directly with the incoming Hydro Pump. Another head-on clash? Dylan really had a fiery personality. Many spectators in the stands were astonished. Few trainers would dare to pit a fire-type move directly against a water-type move in sheer force. Boom! Fire Blast and Hydro Pump clashed violently, their immense powers surging against one another, neither side yielding. But soon, Blue and the others noticed with shock Iron Moth's Fire Blast was beginning to overpower Hydro Pump. What? The bird keeper was utterly stunned. He wasn't mistaken, Fire Blast was actually pushing Hydro Pump back toward Blastoise. This completely defied logic. Red narrowed his eyes at the sight. Blastoise's Hydro Pump wasn't any weaker than before. This wasn't a matter of Blastoise getting weaker. It was that Iron Moth was even stronger than Volcarona. Red, my Iron Moth has a much higher special attack than Volcarona. Dylan grinned. Indeed, Iron Moth's special attack was significantly higher than Volcarona's. Although the harsh sunlight didn't activate Iron Moth's ability, it still boosted the power of Fire-type moves. Blastoise! Red called out. Blastoise roared, squeezing out every bit of its strength to intensify Hydro Pump. Iron Moth, overpower it! Dylan commanded. Iron Moth's mechanical core glowed ominously as Fire Blast surged in size, its advance accelerating. Boom! Hydro Pump was completely overwhelmed and evaporated. Fire Blast crashed directly into Blastoise. Fiery explosions erupted, sending red-hot embers flying as shockwaves spread outward, drowning out Blastoise's cries of pain. A searing heat wave rolled across the battlefield, forcing Red to shield his face to avoid taking the brunt of it. What a powerful Fire Blast! Red frowned. Despite the sunlight's boost and debuffs, the fact that Iron Moth could outright overpower Blastoise's Hydro Pump was ridiculous. Smoke and dust filled the air, obscuring Blastoise's figure completely. Discharge! Dylan ordered without hesitation. He didn't need to see Blastoise. Iron Moth hovered above the battlefield, sparks of electricity crackling around its metallic wings. A second later, a massive wave of electric energy surged downward. Discharge! Protect! Red commanded immediately. Electricity was super effective against Blastoise. He couldn't afford to take the hit. Within the smoke, Blastoise barely managed to conjure a protective barrier. Discharge struck the shield, golden lightning crackling violently, but it failed to break through. Keep using Discharge. How long could it keep blocking? Iron Moth's body sparked with energy again as another wave of lightning rained down. Red knew he had to act fast. Blastoise couldn't stay on the defensive forever. The second discharge struck, but Blastoise was gone. A dark hole was left in its place. Dig? Dylan raised an eyebrow. Iron Moth had no way to counter Dig. Prepare Fiery Dance. Iron Moth's metallic wings shimmered as flames began to dance along them. At that moment, Blastoise burst from the ground behind it, cloaked in ground-type energy, lunging toward Iron Moth. Fiery Dance. Iron Moth swiftly turned, releasing a surge of scorching flames just as Blastoise reached striking range. Boom! Fiery Dance clashes with Blastoise's Dig. Blastoise pushed forward with all its might, trying to break through the wall of flames from Iron Moth's Fiery Dance. Red's crimson eyes flickered with sharp focus. If Dig could land a hit on Iron Moth, even if it meant a trade of damage, it would still be worth it. But landing a hit on Iron Moth was easier said than done. With a sudden flap of Iron Moth's wings, the flames of Fiery Dance surged violently. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the battlefield, and the sky was painted in dazzling flames, reflecting in the eyes of every spectator. No way, Dig can't get close to Iron Moth. Its fire-type attacks are way too strong. The Psychic-type trainer wiped the sweat from his face, staring in awe at the sea of crimson flames that had engulfed the battlefield. Even Hydro Pump had failed to overpower Iron Moth's flames. There was no way Dig could withstand the full force of Fiery Dance head-on. That's right. Shell Smash did boost Blastoise's attack, but because of Incineroar's debuffs, it only balanced out to normal levels. Leaf fanned herself with a poster. Damn, it's getting hotter in here. The Rotan Gym's ceiling had already been opened, but with Sunny Day still active and Dylan's Fire-type Pokémon continuously using fire moves, the temperature remained high. Yet, not a single spectator left. A little heat was nothing compared to the excitement of witnessing this incredible gym battle. There's still some time left on Sunny Day. Blastoise definitely can't match up to Iron Moth. But wait. That's a substitute? The psychic trainer had been analyzing the fight but suddenly widened his eyes in shock. On the battlefield, Fiery Dance had detonated. Blastoise should have been knocked down from the sky yet, in that instant, its body vanished in a puff of white smoke. That was the effect of a substitute being destroyed. Sure enough, the real Blastoise appeared right where its substitute had been, cloaked in swirling, surging water, charging straight at Iron Moth. Aqua Jet. Not only that, but a bright blue energy aura surrounded Blastoise. Its torrent ability had been activated. Incredible, he used Substitute Underground? Dylan raised an eyebrow in surprise. But then, a grin slowly spread across his face. That's just like you, Red. Bang! Blastoise's Aqua Jet crashed into Iron Moth before it could retreat, sending the mechanical winged Pokémon hurtling down like a missile. It slammed hard into the battlefield floor. Water-type moves were super effective against Iron Moth, and with Torrent active, Aqua Jet's power was further boosted even under Sunny Day, which weakened water moves. This attack still dealt massive damage to Iron Moth. On top of that, just like Volcarona, Iron Moth's physical defense was low, making the impact even more devastating. Wow! That was incredible. That hit did serious damage to Iron Moth. Mitsuki gasped in amazement. This red guy was insanely skilled. Yeah, using Substitute Underground, that was a brilliant strategy. He must have known from the start that Dig wouldn't work against Iron Moth. Leaf was just as impressed. This kind of battle IQ was on another level. With Iron Moth sent crashing down, Blastoise landed heavily as well, but the moment its feet touched the ground, it winced in pain. Aqua Jet was powerful, but it had recoil damage. Discharge. At that moment, a golden bolt of electricity shot out, striking Blastoise the instant its recoil ended. ZZZTT. Sparks crackled violently across Blastoise's body, sending jolts of pain through it as it curled up slightly, letting out a low growl of agony. Not far away, Iron Moth slowly lifted itself back into the air. Its mechanical wings flickered with residual electricity, its form battered yet still standing. Its eerie cross-shaped eyes locked onto Blastoise with a cold, mechanical intensity. So fast. Red's brows furrowed. It was because of Aqua Jet's recoil. If there had been no recoil stun, Blastoise could have chased after Iron Moth, but now, it was too late. Boom! Another discharge erupted, lightning surging through the battlefield. The explosion of electrical energy sent shockwaves outward. As the smoke cleared, Blastoise lay unconscious on the ground. Blastoise is unable to battle. Iron Moth wins. Leaf announced the result. Red silently recalled Blastoise. That made 2 of his Pokémon down. And both were water types. The battle had just gotten even harder. However, there was some good news. Iron Moth had taken a serious hit, and Sunny Day was about to end. Alright, Red, let's see how you plan to handle my Iron Moth next. Dylan grinned, looking at Red with excitement in his eyes. This was why he loved battling strong opponents, the thrill of a truly competitive fight, the unexpected twists. This was on a whole different level than facing weak trainers. Of course, Dylan also loved crushing opponents mercilessly and basking in the admiration and shock of onlookers. Yeah, alternating between these two feelings was pretty great. Red could see the burning anticipation in Dylan's gaze. His red eyes gleamed slightly as he pulled out an Ultra Ball. Normally, most of his main Pokémon were caught using standard Pokeballs. Except for one. Because, this was a Pokémon that Dylan had personally given to him. Dylan, this is the Pokémon you gave me. Red threw the Ultra Ball, his crimson eyes flashing with determination. Now, feel its power. Roaring Moon. Ruo-or. A savage, draconic roar thundered through the Rotan Gym. Chapter 226, What's Dylan's final Pokémon? Roar. A wild and ferocious roar echoed through the entire Rota Gym. A massive, dragon-like Pokémon floated in midair, its savage eyes locked onto Iron Moth with a menacing glare. Ancient Roaring Moon. Its appearance bore some resemblance to Salamence, yet it was distinctively different.
The crescent-shaped, blood-red wings, vast and wild, were even larger than its body. This is Roaring Moon? Wait. Did Big Brother Gym Leader give it to him? Lily was surprised. As far as she knew, only her older brother, the gym leader, should have a roaring moon at this point. But just now, it seemed that Red had mentioned this was a Pokemon gifted to him by Dylan.
Beep. Roaring Moon, Dragon/Dark type, the Paradox Pokemon.
Ability, Protosynthesis. Moves, Abyssal Thrust, Dragon Rush, Dragon Dance, Pro Chop, Flamethrower, Zen Headbutt, Scale Shot. Description: it could possibly be the very creature documented in the mysterious exploration records under the name Roaring Moon.
What a well-trained Roaring Moon! Leaf studied the Rotom Pokédex's entry.
Compared to her own Iron Valiant, this Roaring Moon that Red had was clearly far more imposing. Roaring Moon is certainly powerful, but it has a glaring 4 times weakness to Fairy.
As long as we find an opening, we can exploit it. Still, I think I prefer Iron Valiant over Roaring Moon. Celine blinked her beautiful eyes. As Dylan's apprentice and employee, the girls had a fair understanding of Paradox Pokemon.
Aside from the 6 unique ones that belong to Wave Surge Water, the strongest among the Paradox Pokemon were undeniably Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant, their strength on par with pseudo-legendaries.
But between the two, Celine had a clear favorite. She adored the cold and stylish Iron Valiant.
The image of it wielding its crimson energy blades was just way too cool for her tastes.
Absolutely badass. On the battlefield.
The lingering sunlight from harsh sunlight continued to bathe the arena, casting a faint red glow over Roaring Moon's body.
Protosynthesis activated.
Roaring Moon's aura became even more ferocious and overwhelming. Under the effects of protosynthesis, its attack power increased.
You've raised it well. Giving it to you was definitely the right choice. Dylan observed Roaring Moon with interest before nodding in satisfaction. It looks like you've made it one of your core Pokemon, Red. Roaring Moon is strong.
Red adjusted his cap slightly. He wasn't a trainer who cared solely about a Pokemon's inherent strength, otherwise, he wouldn't have put so much effort into raising Pikachu.
In reality, Pikachu wasn't that powerful. But even Red had to admit that Roaring Moon was a monster.
With his meticulous training, its power had grown at an astonishing rate. In terms of raw strength, Roaring Moon was already approaching the level of his ace, Charizard.
Whether in terms of innate talent or base stats, Roaring Moon was undeniably exceptional.
Since Dylan had given him this Pokemon, Red had dedicated himself to raising it not just out of gratitude but because it was now part of his team.
No need to thank me, Red. I already have my own main Roaring Moon, so rather than keeping this one, I figured it should shine under your command. Dylan smiled. He could tell Red was about to say something appreciative, but he didn't need to hear it. Red was someone he recognized as a friend, and besides, he still owed Red a favor. Red remained silent. All right then, show me how strong your Roaring Moon has become. Dylan smirked.
Though he was using a fire-type team for this battle, Roaring Moon still benefited from harsh sunlight due to its ability.
That was going to be a problem.
Glancing at the sunlit battlefield, Dylan noted that harsh sunlight would soon fade.
Roaring Moon, Scale Shot.
Red immediately focused, his crimson eyes gleaming as he gave his command. Roaring Moon let out a fierce roar, its 2 massive wings slicing through the air. A barrage of glowing azure scales shot forth like bullets.
A dragon-type Scale Shot. Fiery Dance.
Iron Moth's metallic wings shimmered with embers, the motion of its flapping releasing a wave of flames to counter the incoming Scale Shot. Flames and scales clashed violently, culminating in a sudden explosion. But before the smoke could fully clear,
a massive shadow loomed overhead. Dragon Rush. Roaring Moon let out an earth-shaking roar.
Pure dragon energy surged through its body, transforming it into a devastating force of destruction. It tore through the flames, surging forward with overwhelming killing intent.
Fire Blast. Dylan raised an eyebrow. This battle was getting intense. Iron Moth swiftly flapped backward, releasing a massive, shaped burst of scorching flames to intercept the incoming Dragon Rush. Boom!
Flames and dragon collided, light and shadows intertwining. The spectral dragon form of Dragon Rush roared silently, pressing against Fire Blast with relentless force. It was clear Fire Blast couldn't fully hold off the attack. In the next instant, Fire Blast exploded, its remnants dispersing into a shockwave. But to everyone's shock, Roaring Moon charged straight through the explosion. Bang! Dragon Rush slammed into Iron Moth before it could retreat, sending it crashing to the ground with a painful screech. That dragon is insane. This thing is a beast. Roaring Moon? I've never even heard of this Pokemon. A birdkeeper was stunned. Even Blastoise's Hydro Pump couldn't overpower Iron Moth's Fire Blast, yet Roaring Moon had crushed it. Unbelievable. This kid is even stronger than that green guy from before. An older female trainer sighed in admiration. Comparing oneself to others was just infuriating. She had thought that the last challenger, Green, was already an unbeatable prodigy among his generation. But now, here was another one, possibly even stronger. Is this kid even human? Back on the battlefield, Iron Moth lay motionless on the ground, pain coursing through its body as it struggled to rise. Dragon-type moves weren't super effective against it, but Roaring Moon's attack stat was simply too high and Iron Moth's physical defense was quite low. Scale shot. Roaring Moon flapped its mighty wings, releasing another storm of azure scales, bombarding Iron Moth and creating a chain of explosions. A thick cloud of dust billowed into the air. As it cleared, Iron Moth was revealed, collapsed on the ground. Iron Moth is unable to battle. Roaring Moon wins. Leaf announced the result. That was a strong Roaring Moon. Dylan's usual gentle smile remained unchanged as he acknowledged its power. This Roaring Moon was indeed a force to be reckoned with, especially under harsh sunlight. Before dealing with Roaring Moon, he couldn't afford to set up Sunny Day again. Otherwise, the boost it provided was just too overwhelming. Red didn't say anything, but a faint smile appeared on his face. Harsh sunlight had now faded, and photosynthesis had deactivated. But what about this? Dylan tossed out his next Pokeball. Incineroar, enter the battle. Red immediately frowned. Not this damn thing again. After a brief moment of thought, Red recalled Roaring Moon. If Roaring Moon stayed in, it would get hit with Intimidate and suffer an attack drop. That would cripple its offensive power. Instead, Red tossed out Pikachu's Pokeball. Let Pikachu take the triple debuff package from Incineroar. So you finally stopped being stubborn, huh? Dylan chuckled. No further words were needed. The usual triple Intimidate cycle played out, and then Dylan recalled Incineroar. This time, instead of sending out Ninetales to restart harsh sunlight, Dylan reached for his fifth Pokeball. NTI. Enter the battle. A flash of white light. A thunderous, regal roar shook the battlefield as NTI landed with an imposing presence before Dylan. One of Hoenn's legendary guardians. NTI. Whoa! It's NTI. The audience erupted into excited exclamations. Many people in Kanto were well aware that the Rota Gym leader, Dylan, had captured several legendary Pokemon. After all, his Golden Legend team was no longer a secret. However, beyond that famous team, other types of Pokemon teams he used also occasionally included legendary Pokemon. Of course, for challengers to face a legendary Pokemon, they needed to be strong enough, and it also depended on which team Dylan chose to use for the battle. But still, NTI is only his fifth Pokemon? A Psychic-type trainer watched the majestic and awe-inspiring NTI, curious about what Dylan's final Fire-type Pokemon would be. As for Ninetales and Incineroar, their roles in the team were clearly support-based. However, while Ninetales was mostly a setup Pokemon, Incineroar was an entirely different story. It was actually very strong. Dylan's apprentice, Celine, had already proven this, and Incineroar was one of Dylan's veteran Pokemon, a reliable old guard. While it served as a support Pokemon in this battle, it was by no means weak. In fact, no one had ever pushed Dylan to the point where he needed to rely on Incineroar for offense.
So by that logic, NTI was Dylan's third battle-focused Pokemon. But what about the final one? Dylan had a habit. The later he sent out a Pokemon, the harder it was to deal with.
This time, though, there was finally a chance to see it.
This kid might actually force Dylan to send out his sixth Pokemon. A bird keeper marveled.
Red still had 4 Pokemon left.
NTI was powerful, but who said that a legendary Pokemon was unbeatable? Could it be Gouging Fire? Or maybe Reshiram? Celine and the others speculated eagerly.
It's not Gouging Fire. I saw earlier that its Pokeball wasn't added to the team.
And as for the White Dragon, Big Brother wouldn't use Reshiram in a gym battle that doesn't involve the legendary badge.
Lily shook her head. NTI was a recent capture, and while powerful, it still wasn't as strong as Gouging Fire. But Lily was certain Gouging Fire wasn't in this battle.
Then it must be that one.
Leaf and the others immediately guessed which Fire-type Pokemon Dylan was saving as his final trump card. After all, Dylan had always been fond of that Pokemon. And ever since acquiring it, he had spent a great deal of time raising it.
Moreover,
considering the recent rumors, Lily realized that now was the perfect time for Dylan to finally use that Pokemon in battle.
NTI. Red's crimson eyes blazed with excitement as he stared at the regal and imposing NTI. A legendary Pokemon NTI. This kind of opponent. Well then, Red. Dylan smiled, extending his hand as he spoke. How will you handle my NTI? Come back, Pikachu.
Without hesitation, Red recalled his weakened Pikachu and threw Roaring Moon's Pokeball back onto the field.
The ancient, savage dragon loomed over NTI, its piercing gaze locked onto the legendary beast. But NTI stood firm, unshaken, its majestic, commanding eyes meeting Roaring Moon's challenge head-on.
Red lowered his cap, his eyes burning with battle spirit. He could even feel his own heartbeat pounding with exhilaration.
This battle felt amazing. Defeating a legendary Pokemon. That achievement would be his. Today. Chapter 227, Facing a Legend. Face NTI. Face a legend.
For Red, this was both a tough challenge and an exciting opportunity, exactly the kind of battle he loved. Only in fights like these could he truly feel his own existence and his purpose as a trainer.
He craved battle. He dreamed of battle. He lived for battle. Victory and honor? Those were just bonuses that came along the way. Red knew very well he was fundamentally different from Blue.
Blue chased the peak of the trainer world because he wanted to be the champion, to be recognized as the strongest trainer in the world. That had been Blue's dream since childhood.
But Red?
He sought strength for a different reason, to battle stronger opponents. As long as he kept getting stronger, the opponents he encountered would also be stronger. He challenged the Indigo League because the Kanto Elite Four were the strongest trainers in the region.
He came to Rota Gym because its gym leader was Dylan.
Scale shot. Red's crimson eyes burned with passion, his voice brimming with excitement and intensity, a side of him rarely seen. Roaring Moon's blood-red wings sliced through the air, releasing a rain of glowing blue scales that shot down like bullets.
A dragon-type scale shot. Extreme speed. Dylan chuckled. NTI lowered its stance, its muscular legs tensing. A brilliant white light flared behind it, then boom. In an instant, NTI shot forward like a lightning bolt.
A normal-type priority move, extreme speed. Scale shot covered a wide area, but extreme speed was simply too fast. Before the scales could land, NTI had already vanished.
Roaring Moon, fly higher.
Red's sharp gaze locked onto the orange blur as NTI dashed across the battlefield at insane speed. Roaring Moon flapped its massive wings, soaring higher into the air.
But suddenly,
a fiery blur leaped up, heading straight for Roaring Moon.
It was NTI. Boosted by extreme speed, it moved faster than expected, even catching Roaring Moon off guard. Bang!
NTI's tackle slammed into Roaring Moon's midsection.
The dragon gritted its teeth, letting out a pained growl.
Roaring Moon was a brutal physical attacker. Aside from special attack and defense, it had no weaknesses. With one of the highest attack stats among non-legendary Pokémon, blazing speed, and flight capabilities, it was an absolute powerhouse.
Its low defense was its only true flaw. Rock Slide. Red didn't hesitate.
Even with its low defense, Roaring Moon wasn't going to lose to a simple extreme speed.
With a fierce roar, Roaring Moon summoned massive boulders, launching them straight at NTI. Extreme speed. Once again, NTI vanished. Using the momentum from its own speed, it sidestepped the incoming boulders, dodging them with ease. Don't let it escape. Dragon Rush. Red immediately pressed the attack.
Extreme speed was a frustrating move to deal with, but now that NTI was airborne, it had no way to regain its momentum.
This was the perfect chance to strike. Roar.
Roaring Moon's wings flared wide, its entire body radiating pure dragon energy. The energy formed into the shape of a fearsome dragon, surrounding Roaring Moon's body.
Dragon Rush. The feral dragon dived down, slamming toward NTI with unstoppable force. Sacred Fire. Dylan reacted instantly.
NTI let out a thunderous roar, its body erupting in violet flames. Sacred Fire *, a powerful fire-type move originally exclusive to Ho-Oh, but NTI could also use it. However, NTI's Sacred Fire was different.
Unlike Ho-Oh's radiant multicolored flames, NTI's version burned with deep violet hues.
Dragon Rush and Sacred Fire collided.
Boom!
The impact sent waves of energy rippling through the battlefield. The temperature inside the gym rapidly soared from the heat of battle.
And then, bang! Sacred Fire exploded, sending out a wave of scorching flames. But before the flames could completely disperse, a massive shadow broke through the firestorm.
Roaring Moon forced its way through the explosion.
Crash! Dragon Rush slammed into NTI.
The legendary beast roared in pain, but Roaring Moon didn't stop.
With unstoppable momentum, Roaring Moon slammed NTI straight into the ground. Boom!
The battlefield trembled from the sheer force of impact.
The ground beneath NTI cracked apart, leaving deep fissures. Dust and debris filled the air. Damn! That hit was brutal.
This Roaring Moon is crazy strong.
No way, it just bulldozed through the explosion and kept going? That's insane. It must have high special defense. Dragon-type resists fire, so NTI's attacks aren't as effective.
The crowd buzzed with excitement as more and more spectators gathered to watch the battle unfold. Word had already spread through Rhoda. Dylan, the gym leader, was going all out in a full-team battle against a challenger.
Even casual onlookers from Rhoda's shopping district had rushed over to see. Trainers from nearby areas had also arrived, drawn by the intensity of the fight. Dylan was a rising legend, and many people wanted to see him battle firsthand.
Recently, there were even rumors that a group from Galar had come to Rhoda to recruit Dylan.
Roaring Moon. Rock Slide.
Red ignored the growing audience.
He didn't care about the crowd, he never had. He was completely focused on the battle. This was his chance to press his advantage, he wasn't going to waste it.
Roaring Moon soared upward, its wings stirring the air, summoning a hail of massive boulders.
A powerful rock slide. Extreme speed. Suddenly. Boom!
The orange blur shot forward again, slamming into Roaring Moon's chest. Roaring Moon roared in fury, its expression twisted into a feral snarl.
Dragon Claw. Red didn't panic.
He knew Roaring Moon excelled in close combat. Roaring Moon's claws gleamed with draconic energy, slashing toward NTI.
Crunch, bite it! NTI's jaws snapped open, revealing gleaming black fangs. Bam! It caught Roaring Moon's claw in its teeth, biting down with immense force. Will-o-wisp.
NTI's body flared with eerie blue flames.
The blue fire engulfed Roaring Moon. Burned.
Roaring Moon let out a pained roar, its attack power was crippled.
Red let his guard down.
TCH, this burn is a disaster for Roaring Moon.
Leaf clicked her tongue in frustration. Among all status conditions, burns were the most devastating for physical attackers. Not only did burns cause chip damage over time, but more importantly, they severely reduced a Pokémon's attack stat. In the games, attack is halved when burned. For a close combat physical powerhouse like Roaring Moon, this was practically a death sentence. How was it supposed to fight now? Roaring Moon is basically crippled now. What a wasted opportunity. A bird keeper sighed in disappointment. It was almost impossible to avoid. NTI was willing to take a hit just to land the burn. And honestly, who would expect a legendary Pokémon like NTI to even use Will-O-Wisp? A young woman rolled her eyes. This was NTI. As a legendary Pokémon, wasn't it supposed to dominate with overwhelming power? That was the image everyone had of legendary Pokémon. But this NTI was using Will-O-Wisp? Is this really how you use a legendary? This is Dylan we're talking about. Nothing he does is surprising. Besides, fire-type moves that inflict burns are his specialty. A psychic-type trainer shrugged. Dylan had once been called an unorthodox trainer for his unconventional battle strategies. An NTI using Will-O-Wisp? That was nothing unusual for him. On the battlefield. Red, looks like you weren't careful enough. Dylan smirked as he addressed his opponent.
Red remained silent, staring at his Roaring Moon, which had managed to regain altitude.
Despite its intimidating presence, its offensive threat had plummeted due to the burn. Roaring Moon's entire battle style revolved around overwhelming physical force. Now that its attack was cut in half, it couldn't hit hard anymore. What was it supposed to do now? Start using special attacks instead? Even with its weakened attack, Roaring Moon's physical power was still probably higher than its special attack. Roaring Moon wasn't Salamence, it couldn't function as a mixed attacker. It was a pure physical powerhouse. Return, Roaring Moon. Red didn't hesitate and recalled Roaring Moon. A smart choice. Dylan chuckled. Cold and rational, as always. A burned Roaring Moon stood no chance against NTI. Red had immediately recognized this and switched out, choosing to preserve his Pokémon for later opportunities. Snorlax. Red tossed out his fifth Pokémon. He did not send out Pikachu.
Pikachu relied on speed and agility for fast-paced attacks, but NTI had extreme speed, making it a poor matchup. Since Dylan was using a fire-type team, Venusaur was also not an option. A flash of white light revealed Snorlax, landing with a heavy thud in front of Red. Much stronger than before. Eileen glanced at Snorlax's battle data. Compared to a few months ago, Red Snorlax had made huge progress in both strength and move versatility. No wonder even Dylan acknowledged Red as a monster of a trainer. His growth rate was terrifying. If it weren't for Dylan, then Red and Blue would unquestionably be the strongest rising stars of Kanto's new generation. This Red is incredible. I wonder who would win between him and Blue. Lily was curious. So far, Red seemed stronger than Blue. But Blue had battled weeks ago, and for trainers like Red and Blue, who were still in their rapid growth phase, every day of progress was crucial. Who knows? We'll find out at the end of the year. Leaf shrugged. Both Red and Blue were aiming for the Kanto Championship. Their battle was inevitable. Snorlax, huh? Dylan raised an eyebrow. If he remembered correctly, this Snorlax had the Thick Fat ability. Thick Fat reduces damage taken from fire and ice-type attacks. That ability gave Snorlax a huge advantage against fire types. NTI's strongest fire-type attacks were now useless. Dylan sighed. NTI could breathe fire, but Roaring Moon resisted fire, and Snorlax had thick fat.
Without harsh sunlight to boost its power, NTI's fire moves wouldn't be effective at all. Snorlax, Earthquake. Red's command was calm and firm. Snorlax let out a deep rumble, then slammed its massive arms into the ground. Boom! The battlefield shook violently, sending a wave of seismic force rippling forward. A ground-type earthquake. Extreme speed. NTI dashed forward, just as the earthquake shockwave closed in.
At the last moment, it leaped high into the air, evading the brunt of the attack while racing straight for Snorlax.
Bang!
Extreme speed struck Snorlax hard. Snorlax grunted in pain.
Its defense wasn't great, but its massive bulk meant it could take hits exceptionally well.
Extreme speed hurt, but not enough to be a serious threat.
Rock slide. Red immediately countered.
Large boulders materialized and came crashing down toward NTI.
But the white streak of light didn't fade. The moment NTI landed, it instantly launched into motion again. Extreme speed.
With fluid, lightning-fast movements, NTI dodged between the falling boulders, maneuvering effortlessly through the barrage.
Then, boom!
Another extreme speed slammed into Snorlax.
Right in the face. Snorlax roared in frustration, shaking off the hit as it swung its huge arms at NTI.
But NTI had already leaped back, dodging effortlessly. Snorlax growled angrily. It really wanted to catch this annoying four-legged dog, but no matter how hard it tried, it simply wasn't fast enough. It wanted to fight head-on, but its opponent refused to play fair.
Frustration. JPG. Come on, fight me properly. This won't work.
Extreme speed is too fast, we need a different approach.
Red's eyes narrowed.
NTI's extreme speed was way too polished.
Snorlax was strong, but its slower movements meant that it could never catch NTI in a direct confrontation.
Even though extreme speed's individual damage wasn't high, NTI could keep spamming it to chip away at Snorlax's health while staying untouched.
Man, extreme speed is so broken. Celine couldn't help but admire the move. Look at Snorlax, it looks completely helpless against NTI.
On the battlefield, Snorlax looked like a clumsy oaf, while NTI darted around gracefully, striking and retreating with perfect precision. Snorlax was getting outplayed so hard, it was almost embarrassing. This bear is getting humiliated. Third update for the day.
Chapter 228, Dylan's Mega Evolution.
Snorlax, stockpile. Red had given up on attacking. NTI's extreme speed was simply too fast, and its mastery of the move was extremely high. With such a swift and agile NTI, Snorlax had no chance of catching it. Since that was the case, he had to change his approach. Suppressing the frustration in its heart, Snorlax began to glow with a white aura, focusing all its attention. The normal-type move stockpile allowed it to accumulate power, raising both its defense and special defense.
Oh? Dylan raised an eyebrow. Stockpile?
He wasn't particularly worried about that. While it was true that NTI struggled to land a powerful move against Snorlax due to its thick fat ability, dealing with stockpile was no issue at all.
A simple roar or swagger could easily break the stockpile and swallow strategy. If he used either of those moves, Red would definitely have Snorlax evade. Getting hit would be too costly. In that case, let's take a bit of a risk. Dylan muttered to himself. Boom!
NTI struck Snorlax with extreme speed once again. This was already the third consecutive hit. Snorlax cried out in pain, but its first stockpile was completed, boosting its defense and special defense. Keep stockpiling.
NTI, Giga Impact. Dylan issued the command decisively.
NTI steadied itself as a powerful white spiral of energy swirled around its body. This was the strongest normal-type attack, Giga Impact. NTI charged forward with unstoppable force, launching a devastating impact towards Snorlax. Giga Impact, also known as Hyper Impact or Ultimate Impact, was one of the strongest normal-type moves, equivalent in power to Hyper Beam in the special category. However, very few trainers used Giga Impact because, like Hyper Beam and Frenzy Plant, it left the user in a state of immobility afterward. This post-attack immobility was an inherent drawback. No amount of training could completely remove it. Only certain special techniques could help mitigate the downtime. But even with such techniques, using Giga Impact was rarely worth it. It was typically reserved as a finishing move, a last resort, or when there were no other options available. As NTI charged forward with immense force, the audience was momentarily stunned. Even Red, the opponent, tilted his head in confusion.
Giga Impact? Protect.
Red didn't fully understand what Dylan was planning, but he instinctively issued the command. Snorlax abandoned its second stockpile and erected a glowing green protective barrier.
Boom!
Giga Impact collided heavily with the protect barrier, causing ripples of energy to spread across its surface, sending shockwaves howling through the stadium. The powerful wind generated by the attack stung the faces of those nearby, a testament to Giga Impact's raw strength.
But it was useless. Protect had perfectly blocked the attack. And once the impact had dissipated, NTI leaped backward to land gracefully.
However, the recoil of Giga Impact kicked in, leaving its body momentarily frozen in place. Even though the move hadn't hit Snorlax directly, the fact that it had clashed with Protect meant that NTI still suffered from the move's cooldown effect.
Earthquake. Red's eyes still held a trace of doubt. He couldn't figure out why Dylan had made such a move.
But NTI was undeniably immobilized due to Giga Impact, and that was all that mattered.
Snorlax grinned, a goofy yet somewhat sinister smile spreading across its face.
Raising its thick arms, it slammed them hard into the ground.
Earthquake. Rumble.
The ground trembled violently as shockwaves surged forward, mercilessly shaking NTI. NTI let out a pained roar. Being a fire type, it was weak to ground type moves, making this hit particularly effective. Combined with the damage it had already taken from Roaring Moon's Dragon Rush and Dragon Claw, NTI's condition was starting to deteriorate.
Rock Slide. Red commanded, pressing the attack. NTI, reversal. Dylan smirked. NTI lifted its head, its regal eyes locking onto Snorlax. Then, with unwavering determination, it charged forward. Reversal, a fighting-type move. The lower the user's HP, the stronger the attack became. A brilliant white energy surrounded NTI's body, its unwavering fighting spirit surging to its peak. Snorlax, high horsepower. Red instantly realized what was happening. Giga Impact had been intentional. Dylan sure has guts.
At the same time, many experienced trainers in the audience also suddenly understood the strategy, leaving them speechless.
Giga Impact left NTI vulnerable, and Red naturally wouldn't let that opportunity slip by.
Even if something felt off, he still attacked.
After all, immobilization meant no ability to fight back. Who wouldn't take that chance?
Moreover, hitting NTI was already difficult for Snorlax, considering NTI's speed. Giga Impact's cooldown was brief, and if Red didn't attack immediately, the opportunity would be lost. So he took the shot. But that super-effective Earthquake had pushed NTI's HP into the perfect range for reversal to deal massive damage.
Normally, NTI didn't have any move that could heavily damage Snorlax due to its thick fat ability. But reversal's power increased as NTI's HP decreased.
So Dylan deliberately let NTI take a heavy hit to push its HP down, maximizing reversal's potential. Judging by NTI's current condition, it hadn't quite reached critical levels, but it was still more than enough. And Snorlax was weak to fighting-type moves. This kind of self-sacrificial strategy just to power up a single attack was rarely seen. For moves like Belly Drum, trainers were usually willing to take the risk, but for a situational move like reversal? That took real nerve. Snorlax roared, stepping forward with powerful force, brownish-yellow energy surging around it, high horsepower.
Boom! NTI and Snorlax collided with immense force.
White and brown energy clashed violently, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Reversal and high horsepower battled fiercely, causing the very ground beneath them to crack apart. But soon, NTI's roar grew louder, and Snorlax started to falter.
I'm losing this clash.
Red's eyes sharpened. This was bad. Snorlax bellowed, desperately pushing back with all its strength, but it simply couldn't overpower NTI.
Boom!
High horsepower's energy was shattered, and NTI's reversal struck Snorlax head-on. Snorlax let out a pained cry as its massive body was sent flying, rolling several times before finally coming to a stop.
Its breathing had become extremely weak. A devastating fighting-type reversal. Again, reversal. Dylan smiled. Snorlax, rest. Red didn't hesitate, he knew Snorlax wouldn't survive another hit. Snorlax flopped onto the ground and immediately began snoring peacefully.
NTI rushed forward to finish it off, but it was just a second too late. Snorlax was already asleep. Rest fully restored its HP, but it also put Snorlax in a deep sleep.
NTI's reversal slammed into Snorlax's sleeping form, making it groan even in its sleep. Sleep talk. Red acted swiftly. Even in its sleep, Snorlax suddenly stood up, lightning crackling around its fist. It had randomly used Thunder Punch. But NTI, keeping its cool, dodged easily. Dodge, then reversal. Dylan smirked. Just as NTI charged forward. Boom! A brilliant white explosion erupted. The Snorlax had randomly used explosion. Boom! Blinding white light flashed repeatedly, culminating in a deafening explosion.
NTI sensed something was wrong, but it had just switched to extreme speed to escape. Too late.
Snorlax used self-destruct.
A massive shockwave erupted, sending violent energy rippling across the battlefield, completely engulfing NTI before it could retreat.
Dylan was stunned. Sleep Talk can randomly select self-destruct? What kind of luck was this?
Red's crimson eyes flickered, but a hint of joy surfaced within them.
Nice work, Snorlax.
As the dust settled, a large crater was revealed.
Snorlax lay sprawled at the center, its eyes swirling in a daze.
On the edge of the crater, NTI was barely holding on, its body covered in wounds. It gasped for breath, muscles trembling as it struggled against the pain and dizziness, forcing itself to stand.
It's still conscious?
The commentator gasped in shock. Given how weakened NTI was from using reversal, it should have been on its last legs already. And now, it had taken the full force of self-destruct.
But just as NTI managed to stand, its legs buckled. Its vision blurred, and with a heavy thud, it collapsed once more, unable to keep going. The entire arena fell silent. Snorlax and NTI are both unable to battle. Leaf stepped onto the field, officially announcing the result. Holy crap! That was insane. What just happened? Snorlax barely even touched NTI the whole fight, and somehow it took it down in the end? Snorlax, I KO'd a legendary Pokemon while completely unconscious. I have no words.
The final Sleep Talk actually picked self-destruct?
What kind of dreams does this Snorlax have? The crowd exploded into chaos, half in excitement, half in disbelief. They had just witnessed a challenger take down Dylan's legendary Pokemon, NTI.
But at the same time, NTI's defeat felt so unfair. It hadn't lost due to strategy or skill, it was pure bad luck.
Red recalled Snorlax and praised it with a small smile. Snorlax?
Inside its Pokeball, Snorlax woke up utterly confused.
Huh? I just lay down for a nap, why am I back in my ball? Did I lose to that big fire dog? Well played, Red. You actually managed to take down my NTI.
Dylan recalled NTI, staring at its Pokeball for a moment before chuckling softly.
That wasn't really a victory based on skill. Red shook his head.
He was happy, after all, taking down a legendary Pokemon was no small feat.
But he also knew the truth, he got absurdly lucky.
If Dylan had expected self-destruct, he would have definitely played around it. But who could have predicted that Sleep Talk would select self-destruct?
Luck is a part of skill. Dylan smiled lightly. Now then, Red, his eyes gleamed with excitement. Let me introduce you to my final trump card. Dylan reached for another Ultra Ball. He had considered the possibility that Red would defeat NTI. But he hadn't expected NTI to be traded for Snorlax like this. Oh well. It didn't matter. Because this next Pokemon was the real ace. Red's eyes immediately lit up. This is a Pokemon you should be very familiar with. Dylan's lips curved into a grin as he flipped the Ultra Ball into the air. Charizard. Battle ready. Charizard?
Red froze for a moment.
Roar. A deafening, familiar yet foreign roar echoed through the stadium. A Charizard soared into the sky, its entire body pitch black. It circled once before landing in front of Dylan, tilting its head slightly as it locked eyes with Red, arrogant and confident. A black Charizard? Red's crimson pupils flickered with excitement. An alternate-colored Charizard. But something felt off. Why was this Charizard wearing a strange necklace-like accessory around its neck? Was it just for style? A black Charizard was already unique enough, why the extra decoration? Beep. Charizard, Fire/Flying type, Flame Pokemon. Ability, Solar Power. Moveset, Blast Burn, Dragon Rush, Flare Blitz, Inferno Abyss, Dragon Claw, Flamethrower, Earthquake, Hurricane. This Charizard was insanely powerful. I didn't expect Charizard to be Dylan's final Pokemon, coming in after NTI. That's unusual. Some psychic trainers in the audience were puzzled. Sure, a shiny Charizard was rare, but being shiny didn't make a Pokemon stronger. That was a fact confirmed by Pokemon professors worldwide. Just watch, a bird trainer replied nonchalantly. Meanwhile, Lily and her group exchanged knowing glances. They weren't surprised at all. Red, have you ever seen Charizard's true form? Dylan reached into his pocket and pulled out a beautiful gemstone-like crystal. His gaze met Red's as he smiled. Question mark. Red was confused. Then let me show you. Dylan raised the crystal, its chain glinting under the stadium lights. The Kalos region recently published a research paper on this phenomenon. Dylan's expression remained calm, but his excitement was clear. Originally, he hadn't planned on revealing Mega Evolution so soon. But now that Kalos had officially published its findings, there was no need to hold back. Red, pay close attention. You're going to use this one day too. The gemstone in Dylan's hand, his keystone, began to glow. This is the power that surpasses evolution, Mega Evolution. A brilliant grin spread across Dylan's face. Charizard. Roar. Black Charizard lifted its head and let out a thundering roar. At the same time, the Mega Stone on its necklace radiated with dazzling, multicolored light, completely enveloping Charizard's body. Mega Evolution activated. Red's crimson eyes widened, locking onto the glowing Charizard. Was this an evolution? Could Charizard evolve even further? Roar! A piercing roar erupted as the transformation completed. A gray-black dragon-like Pokemon emerged from the light, standing tall and radiating overwhelming power. Its deep crimson eyes gleamed with clarity and wild intensity. Its body was sleeker, more streamlined. A third horn had sprouted from the back of its head. Its limbs, wings, and tail had grown longer. Small wing-like structures had even formed on its wrists. The sheer heat and raw energy radiating from its body was even stronger than before. This was Mega Charizard Y. The entire stadium fell into stunned silence. Charizard could still evolve? And not just that, it looked insanely powerful. Red, this is Mega Charizard Y. One of Charizard's Mega Evolution forms. Dylan smiled at Red's entranced expression. So cool. Red murmured in awe. He didn't know how Charizard had evolved, but he loved Charizard. And this black Mega Charizard Y was beyond incredible. I think so too, Dylan said with a grin. But let me tell you something. His expression turned confident. My Charizard isn't just cool. It's the strongest Charizard in the world. Period. Dylan didn't care about Alan's Charizard, Ash's Charizard, or even Leon's Charizard. His shiny Mega Charizard Y was unstoppable. Anyone who doubted it could battle him and find out the hard way. Chapter 229, I knew it. What the heck is this? How can Charizard still evolve? Ha! So I wasn't seeing things. I can't believe it. Something like this actually exists. There was a research paper from Kalos a while back suggesting that Pokemon in their final evolutions might still be able to evolve. But it was mostly ridiculed. Who knew it was actually true? The spectators in the stands finally snapped out of their shock,
their expressions filled with disbelief as they discussed animatedly. Charizard, one of Kanto's 3 starter Pokemon, was rare but not unfamiliar to the people of Kanto. Yet precisely because of that familiarity, witnessing a well-known Charizard suddenly evolve before their very eyes was an overwhelming shock.
It was simply unbelievable. Beep Charizard Y, Fire/Flying type, the Flame Pokemon. Ability, Drought. Moves.
Description: its power stems from its bond with its trainer. Its proud flying ability far surpasses that of a jet plane. Charizard Y shared the same typing as a normal Charizard, but their strength levels were worlds apart. A drought ability, plus the sheer power boost from Mega Evolution, Charizard Y is truly the dream Pokemon of Fire-type trainers.
Looking at the Rotom Pokédex's entry, Lily couldn't help but click her tongue in amazement.
Though she wasn't a trainer herself, following Dylan around and watching battles every day had given her theoretical knowledge that surpassed at least 95% of trainers worldwide. She had seen both Charizard Y and Charizard X before. Compared to Charizard X's balanced physical and special attack stats, Charizard Y maximized its special attack potential. Of course, that didn't mean Charizard Y's physical attack was weak. It was a Mega Evolution, after all, and even its physical attack outclassed that of a regular Charizard. But compared to its absurdly high special attack, its physical attack seemed almost negligible. And then there was Charizard Y's ability, Drought.
A weather ability. How many Pokemon in the world had Drought? Ninetales, Torkoal, and Groudon.
That was it, just 3.
And Groudon wasn't even a flying Pokemon, it was a freaking super ancient legendary Pokemon. There was only one in the entire world. Forget catching it, if you even managed to find it, how would a normal person even capture it?
Yet Charizard Y had inherited such a rare and prestigious ability. While Drought didn't directly boost Charizard Y's raw stats, the effects of harsh sunlight on fire-type moves were no joke. Plus, it weakened water-type attacks. Compared to Charizard X's Tough Claws, which was undoubtedly a strong ability for close combat, Drought was functionally superior. It didn't just benefit Charizard Y individually, it was a team-wide advantage. Well, the only real downside was that Charizard Y still had a Fire/Flying typing, making it 4 times weak to Rock-type moves, and its physical defense was fragile, an undeniable weakness. But that didn't make Charizard Y any less powerful. Red, let's see how you'll deal with my Charizard Y. Dylan adjusted his collar and gestured toward Red, signaling him to release his Pokemon. This was the first time he was officially using Charizard in a battle against a challenger, and with Mega Evolution, no less.
Pikachu.
Red lowered his hat brim, his battle spirit surging.
His opponent was a Charizard, one that had evolved yet again. The Pokeball opened, and Pikachu landed nimbly in front of Red, sparks crackling from its cheeks, clearly just as fired up.
Charizard.
Dylan called out. Charizard Y flapped its wings, ascending into the air.
A scorching orb of light rose into the sky, and an intense sunlight bathed the battlefield.
Harsh sunlight. Drought ability?
Red looked at the majestic, ferocious Charizard Y in surprise. Given how fast the harsh sunlight had taken effect, it was undoubtedly a weather ability.
Did its ability change after evolving? Not that surprising, but what about its typing? Red pondered. No need to overthink it.
Charizard Y is still Fire/Flying.
Come on, Red. Dylan answered his unspoken question. Red's eyes gleamed. Pikachu, use Thunderbolt. Electric was super effective against flying.
Red had chosen Pikachu for a reason. With a sharp cry, Pikachu unleashed a golden bolt of electricity, streaking toward Charizard Y at high speed.
Fast, precise, powerful, and impressive Thunderbolt. Counter with Flamethrower. Dylan snapped his fingers.
Charizard Y's mouth swelled as it gathered searing flames. In the next instant, a massive flamethrower erupted forth.
A fire-type flamethrower.
The two attacks clashed midair, but in an instant, completely unexpectedly.
Flamethrower blasted straight through Thunderbolt as if it was nothing, continuing its blazing path toward Pikachu. How is it this strong? Pikachu, dodge. Red's pupils contracted as he shouted. Pikachu reacted swiftly, it had already sensed something was wrong the moment the two attacks collided.
Pushing off with all four legs, it leaped away from its original position.
Boom!
Flamethrower struck the ground where Pikachu had been, sending out rippling waves of scorching fire.
But the moment Pikachu landed, flames engulfed it.
With a pained cry, Pikachu was sent flying and crashed to the ground, struggling to prop itself up with its forelimbs. It was already badly injured.
Red.
Looking at Charizard while leisurely hovering in the air, Red furrowed his brows tightly. This thing is way too strong. The older sister was dumbfounded. Yeah, I think it might even be stronger than Entei. The bird keeper was equally shocked.
That flamethrower.
It had covered nearly half the battlefield when it landed.
Since when was flamethrower used like this?
And the power level, completely absurd. That Pikachu was Red's chosen main force in this battle, meaning its strength was definitely high. But in a direct clash between Flamethrower and Thunderbolt, Flamethrower had just obliterated Thunderbolt without even slowing down.
Even with harsh sunlight boosting fire-type moves, this is ridiculous.
This kind of firepower, it's basically on par with Champion Lance's Charizard.
The psychic trainer clicked his tongue in disbelief. This felt almost unfair.
Even with an extra evolution, a Charizard shouldn't be able to power up this much all at once. That just meant this Charizard was already insanely strong to begin with.
Was this one of Dylan's strongest fire-type Pokemon?
Charizard, use Heat Wave.
Dylan issued his next command. With harsh sunlight active, fire-type moves could be unleashed freely.
And finally, here was an opponent without fire-type resistance. Charizard Y flapped its massive wings, sending a scorching, crimson gust hurtling downward. A fire-type Heat Wave. Even before the attack reached, a surge of heat was already pressing against Pikachu's face.
Protect! Red didn't hesitate.
A green barrier flared up around Pikachu, blocking the intense flames and wind. But Protect wouldn't last forever. Charizard, keep up the heat wave. Charizard Y let out a low roar and swung its wings again, continuing the fiery onslaught. After 5 seconds, cracks began forming on the Protect barrier. It was reaching its limit, while Heatwave continued raging. The battlefield was engulfed in flames, the sheer visual impact leaving the audience in awe. This Charizard Y was terrifying. Protect finally broke, and Pikachu was immediately caught in the firestorm. With a final cry, Pikachu collapsed, its eyes swirling in defeat. Pikachu was unable to battle. Charizard Y wins. Leaf announced the result. Red silently withdrew Roaring Moon, his gaze fixed on the wild, overwhelming presence of the gray-black Charizard Y. Though Roaring Moon had fallen, the good news was that harsh sunlight had finally ended, meaning Charizard Y's fire-type moves no longer had their boost. But honestly, did it even matter? Charizard. Red pulled down the brim of his cap, his fighting spirit reigniting as he sent out his final trump card. Charizard let out a mighty roar as it landed before Red, but the moment it lifted its head and saw Charizard Y across the battlefield, it froze. What the hell is that? Charizard was stunned. Was this supposed to be one of its own kind? Then why did it look so different? And where did it even get that gray-black skin? Charizard Y looked down at Red's Charizard with a proud, dominant gaze, its immense aura completely unrestrained. Red's Charizard, sensing the overwhelming pressure, grew visibly tense. This same species, if it could even be called that, was giving it an incredible sense of oppression. Charizard, this opponent is extremely strong. Give it everything you've got. Roar! It was rare for Red to verbally encourage his Pokémon before a battle, and his Charizard responded with high spirits, tilting its head back in a powerful roar before taking flight to face Charizard Y head-on. He's gotten a lot stronger. Dylan observed Red's Charizard with interest. Compared to their battle back in Vermilion City, this Charizard was no longer the same, it had grown significantly. As Red's ace and his very first Pokémon, in Pokémon Origins, it had even defeated Mewtwo after Mega Evolution. Dylan had immense respect for Red's Charizard. But it didn't matter.
This Charizard was still far from reaching its peak. And his Charizard Y was stronger. Hurricane. Dylan took the initiative. We'll use Hurricane too. Red didn't hesitate.
Both Charizard Y and Charizard let out fierce roars, flapping their wings with force and summoning violent gales.
Flying-type move, Hurricane. Two massive tornadoes clashed midair, the winds howling as they battled for dominance, shockwaves bursting outward. But soon, Charizard Y's Hurricane completely overpowered and shattered Red's Charizard's attack.
Before Red's Charizard could even process what had happened, it was engulfed by the storm.
Boom!
The powerful winds slammed into Charizard, sending it plummeting uncontrollably to the ground with a heavy impact.
As expected, Charizard couldn't keep up. Red's brows furrowed.
Charizard Y was simply too strong, even his ace Charizard was no match. After all, both were Charizards.
But with a difference in strength this vast, how could he win?
Red had incredible battle tactics, and he had demonstrated them several times throughout this full-team battle. But when it came down to two Pokémon of the same species, and one was just objectively stronger, strategy hardly mattered.
The rest of the battle wasn't worth describing.
Even though Red tried his best to command Charizard and shift the fight into close combat, something Charizard was well trained in, Dylan's response was simple: meet force with force. Both Charizards clashed with Dragon Rush, but once again, Charizard Y crushed its opponent. At that moment, Red understood he had lost.
Charizard is unable to battle. Charizard Y wins. Leaf announced the final result. Challenger Red has lost all 6 of his Pokémon. The gym leader, Dylan, is the winner. The challenger has failed the gym battle. As the referee, Leaf remained professional.
In the corner of the gym, the usual referee nodded approvingly.
Well, even if my judging job got stolen, it's not a big deal.
The gym was huge, and there were plenty of other tasks to handle.
Besides, it's not like my paycheck got cut. The moment the battle ended, the audience erupted into enthusiastic applause. Even though the challenger ultimately lost, he had defeated 3 of Dylan's main Pokémon, including NTI. That was insane. That was a fantastic battle, Red. It's always a pleasure fighting you. Dylan walked up to Red, extending his hand with a satisfied smile. Behind him, Charizard Y descended gracefully, standing by his side. Thanks, but I'm still not as good as you.
Red shook Dylan's hand, but instead of frustration, his eyes burned even brighter.
Losing wasn't the end.
In fact, the second defeat against Dylan had only ignited his fighting spirit even further.
Good, looks like you're not too discouraged.
Dylan chuckled before reaching into his pocket, pulling out an elegant badge case.
Last time, you refused, but honestly, I really want to give you this badge, Red. Take it. Dylan opened the case and held it out toward Red. Red didn't have a Rota badge. That was unacceptable. This was the official recognition of the Rota Gym.
Inside the case lay a beautifully crafted Rota badge, encrusted with a fiery diamond, elegant and striking. Red stared at the badge in silence, suddenly deep in thought. He felt like he had overlooked something important.
Dylan was this strong. So how the hell did Blue beat him? If even he couldn't win, how did that guy do it? Did Blue even deserve that badge? No way. Something was off. Dylan, let me ask you something. Did Blue actually defeat you to earn the Rota badge? Blue?
Well, his strength is definitely worthy of the Rota badge.
Dylan answered diplomatically. How many of your main Pokémon did he defeat? Red immediately caught on. 2.
Ha! Red suddenly felt at peace. Of course. There was no way that guy, who was basically at the same level as him, could have actually defeated Dylan.
Turns out Dylan just gave it to him. And yet, Blue had been showing off that badge in front of him this entire time? Unbelievable. Despicable. Shameless. I knew it. That bastard didn't even earn it. Chapter 230, Secured.
Red, you should already know that the Rota Gym's badge system has changed.
Dylan smiled as he spoke. With your strength, you've definitely earned this first Rota badge. But this is only the fire-type Rota badge. And I'm guessing, you're not planning to stop at just one, right? Hearing Dylan's words, Red fell silent again, returning to his usual calm and stoic demeanor. He did want the Rota badge, all of them. But at his current level, that was going to be insanely difficult. There were 18 Rota badges, one for each type. And beyond that, there was still the ultimate legendary Rota badge, the absolute pinnacle. So, you can take this first Rota badge as a symbol of my recognition and approval. But now that you've earned this one, if you want more, you're going to have to work even harder. Dylan placed the box containing the Fire Rota badge into Red's hands, his tone half-joking. Because next time, if you want a second badge, even if you defeat 3 of my main Pokémon, I'm going to have to seriously consider whether or not to give it to you. The first Rota badge was relatively easy to obtain. Dylan only needed to acknowledge a challenger's strength. But for the next ones? The standards would be much stricter. Of course, it varied from person to person. Take Blue, for example. He had only managed to defeat 2 of Dylan's main Pokémon and still received his first badge. So, when Blue came back for another challenge, he'd have to defeat at least 3 before Dylan would even consider giving him a second badge. Red stared at the intricately designed Rota badge in his hand, his brows furrowed. Logically, he didn't really want to accept it. After all, he hadn't defeated Dylan. But at the same time, damn it, he really wanted it. Especially since Blue already had one. Come on, Red, don't overthink it. It's not embarrassing at all. Besides, don't you really want to defeat Dylan? This badge will motivate you even more. Leaf reached out and closed the badge case for him, grinning. Red pressed his lips together, then lifted his head to meet Dylan's gaze. His pure crimson-red eyes reflected Dylan's face. I will defeat you. His voice was firm, carrying absolute determination. I look forward to it, Dylan responded with a smile. But it's not going to be easy, you know. Dylan is insanely strong. But don't worry, I believe in you, Red. Take down the final boss, Dylan, and you'll be Kanto's #1. Leaf beamed, flashing him an enthusiastic thumbs up. Red. Woman, what nonsense are you talking about? Dylan chuckled. Final boss? Him? Come on, he was just a warm-hearted, kind, and responsible gym leader under the Pokemon League. Ehil Leaf giggled innocently, trying to play it off. Well, since you're here, Red, why don't you stay for a meal before you leave? Dylan ignored Leaf's antics and turned to Red. Red hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He wasn't great at socializing, but Dylan and Leaf were 2 of his closest friends. Dylan, where's the restroom? But before anything else, he had something important to do. After getting directions, Red quickly entered the restroom, took out the badge case, opened it, and snapped a photo. Then, he sent it to a certain someone. Truthfully, he wasn't the type to show off. He didn't really care about things like bragging. Except when it came to one specific person. Because that smug bastard was always messing with him. It didn't take long before a reply came. Annoying guy? Red? Annoying guy? No way. Absolutely impossible. There's no way you beat Dylan. No way.jpg. Red, like you did? Annoying guy, tch, knew it. Head.jpg. Red, I defeated 3 of Dylan's main Pokemon. Annoying guy? Red. Including NTI. Annoying guy, this is impossible. I don't believe it.jpg. Oh. My. God. This feels amazing. Red could almost physically feel the frustration through the messages. He could already picture Blue losing his mind over this. Refreshing. So refreshing. Looking at the fiery red Rota badge, Red couldn't help but admire how well it suited him. After all, his name was Red. A red fire-type Rota badge? Absolutely perfect. Red, you look like you're in a really good mood.
Leaf tilted her head as she watched him return from the restroom.
Normally, Red's expressions didn't change much.
He had a calm and collected air, almost too composed at times.
If you didn't know him well, you'd think he was cold and distant. But right now?
It was painfully obvious that he was in a great mood. Because his lips were twitching, he could barely suppress a smirk.
Red quickly pulled down his hat and looked away.
Red, let's head to the treatment room first. Your Pokemon need to recover,
Dylan said with a smile.
He then motioned for Lily and the others to take care of the next challenger, Celine.
No problem, gym leader. Leave it to me.
Celine confidently pounded her chest.
Don't use your main Pokemon to bully the newbies again.
Dylan narrowed his eyes at her.
This wasn't the first time she'd done this.
What? Come on, you gotta trust your precious disciple a little more, boss.
Celine whined. No, it's because I know you that I don't trust you. Dylan deadpanned.
Celine, you're almost a fully fledged trainer now.
Keep it low-key. I know. Celine struck an adorable OK sign with her fingers. Dylan sighed, shaking his head before leading Red to the healing room. Is she your apprentice? Yeah. She's a bit mischievous, but she's almost an official trainer now. Dylan sighed again. Time really flew. Celine had already been his apprentice for almost 5 months.
As Dylan and Red disappeared from view, Celine's innocent, cheerful expression suddenly turned into an excited grin.
Ahem.
She coughed dramatically, then turned toward the spectators with a dangerous gleam in her eyes. Yellow, a newcomer, blinked in confusion at her senior's sudden change in demeanor.
And then? Who wants to challenge the Rota Gym? I accept all challenges.
Her voice was clear and bright, but it carried an unshakable confidence and dominance. Her entire aura screamed power.
Yellow was shocked.
The trainers in the audience, who had been discussing the last battle, immediately froze. And then, in perfect synchronization, they all stood up and rushed toward the exit.
Ha! Hey! Don't run away. Aren't you guys supposed to be trainers? At least leave 2 of you behind. Don't all run away at once. Watching her senior stomp in frustration, Yellow had an epiphany.
As Yellow watched her senior, Celine, furiously stomping her foot and chasing after the fleeing trainers, a thoughtful look crossed her face. She was starting to understand something. Inside the guest lounge.
After chatting for a while about random things, Red couldn't hold back any longer. Dylan, that Charizard of yours.
The Mega Charizard Y from earlier had left a deep impression on him. That was a Mega Evolution, also called Super Evolution.
It's a form of temporary enhancement that Pokemon can achieve, though it hasn't been fully researched yet.
It's not a permanent evolution, but rather a temporary power boost. Right now, researchers in Kalos are studying it, and it probably won't be long before the knowledge spreads.
Dylan explained casually. How did you find out about it? Leaf asked, curious. The origins of Mega Evolution trace back to the Draconid people. My mom is a member of that tribe, so of course I know about it.
But the elders never intended to spread the knowledge, so I just never used it before.
Dylan shrugged.
Red fell silent.
But then, Dylan pushed a box toward him. Question mark. This is a Charizard X Megastone, and this is a Keystone.
They're yours.
Dylan smiled. I can't accept this. Red refused immediately, not even needing to think.
He knew that a stone capable of temporarily evolving a Pokemon had to be extremely rare and valuable.
Dylan had already given him a Roaring Moon. If he accepted this too, how was he ever going to repay him?
For someone like Red, who was mildly socially anxious, accepting gifts like this made him uncalm. Forteable. He saw Dylan as a friend and rival, but he didn't want to keep taking things from him.
Not gonna lie, I have a lot of these. Dylan said casually. He wasn't exaggerating.
Since he knew Mega Evolution would eventually go mainstream, he had brought it up with Professor Rowan long ago. As a result,
Dylan had tons of megastones.
Almost every type except for ultra-rare ones like the Latios and Latias stones. Just for Charizard alone, he had over 20 10X and 10Y.
As for keystones? Too many to count.
Roaring Moon was a gift to thank you for helping me before.
This megastone and keystone? Let's just say I'm helping you out this time. Dylan smiled.
He understood how Red thought. But to him, these stones were nothing compared to how much he valued Red as a person. Whether it was as a rival or for Red's potential, Dylan was more than happy to lend him a hand.
Red. After all, you're going to be Kanto's champion one day, right? Dylan said, grinning. As the champion, I'll be counting on you to have my back.
Red fell silent.
You? Counting on me?
But with the way Dylan had phrased it, refusing again felt wrong.
If you ever need anything, just tell me. I'll be there immediately.
Red's voice was firm, deeply moved.
Dylan was more than just a friend, he was family. And Red meant what he said. When he became Kanto's champion, he would have Dylan's back. Ha, don't worry. I won't be shy about it. Dylan chuckled, nodding in satisfaction.
Ha, at this rate, even if I do nothing, I'll be able to waltz through the Kanto League just based on connections. Now, all he had to do was gift Blue a Blastoise or Tyranitar Megastone and rake in even more favorability points.
Excellent. Red? Secured. Blue? Also secured.
Once these two fully developed, along with Celine and Yellow, they'd all reach the Topic Champion and Elite Four level.
At that point, Kanto would be absolutely unstoppable. Yeah, this plan had potential. Although there was still one more slot open. Who should I add to complete the team?
That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.